IB Nation, welcome back to the Irish Breakdown podcast, live here on a Friday, which of course means a little Notre Dame Recruiting Hour. We have a very unique show planned for you all today. Got two live interviews. First time we've ever done two live interviews in one podcast. We're going to have former Notre Dame cornerback, defensive back, Devin Butler is going to come on. It's kind of our recruits of the past segment. We're going to talk about his recruiting process coming out of Gonzaga in the DC area. We're going to talk about the differences in today's recruiting landscape, how it would potentially change his process if he was a recruit today. So we'll be able to get insight into, obviously, a former Notre Dame player who's also doing great stuff. Lucky Underdogs podcast that he does with Mr. CJ Procise on the Believe Podcast Network. We'll be able to chop it up about that as well. Give you guys a little bit of plug there. We're going to do a mailbag. We already have a ton of mailbag questions already starred. We're going to do that in the middle section of today's podcast because we have a second interview that's going to be here at 3 o'clock Eastern time. Mr. Josiah Kia, who's a 2025 linebacker out of the state of Hawaii. Yes, the younger brother of Kuhano Kia, who was, of course, a Notre Dame linebacker in the 2021 season, played at Notre Dame, is now on a 2-year mission, expected back for the 2024 season. So we'll chop it up with Josiah, a player that we don't talk enough about on this channel and just in Notre Dame fandom in general, but a player that Notre Dame very much likes in Josiah Kia. So you want to know about his recruitment, we're going to give it to you firsthand, get him on the set, ask him the tough questions, see how much he loves Notre Dame. Sean, co-host of the Lucky Lefty podcast, of course, with Mr. Malik Zaire on CFB Nation. Sean, I know we were a little hustle and bustle before the show, man. It's always great to see my guy, Mr. Sean Davis. How's everything going, brother?
Yo, man, it's like getting back in the groove, right? Man, you had to carry the load for most of the summer, and now like our text thread is getting back to what it used to be, and we're talking about film and players from each class, and yo, I'm super excited.
I'm excited too, man, because one, I'm great that you're getting back to great health, which I'm most excited about, right? But you're right. I mean, for the longest time, man, I was like, I felt like a little disjointed because I'm like, I want to call Sean, but like I know he's going through a lot right now. We used to talk like every day, you know what I mean?
Right,
I'm like,
right,
we did it.
right.
Luckily, we're getting back to that chain of command, the chain of communication, which I'm really excited about. Obviously, always great to have you on the show. I think you provide a great perspective and a different perspective, which I think. I mean, what is the best part of podcasts, in my opinion, is having multiple people on there that see the game similarly,
Oh
but don't
man,
see it fully similarly, right? They have
yeah.
their own unique perspective to have it on. So always excited to have my boy Sean Davis on. He spins it differently, as they say over on the Lucky Lefty podcast. So without further ado, I don't want to keep him waiting too long because I always love having the former Notre Dame players on the podcast. We had Mr. CJ Procise on 2 Fridays ago. This is the second half of the new podcast team over on the Believe Podcast Network. Got Mr. Devin Butler, former Notre Dame cornerback. Devin, appreciate you for joining the show, man. How's everything going?
Oh man, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you guys, man. Good morning. Happy to be here. Blessed to be here, man. Everything's going wonderful over here.
Oh, I love it, man. I see you got the Believe hat at the top. That's nice, man.
Oh yeah. You know, I gotta rep the squad. You know, thank you for shouting us out to the Lucky Underdogs podcast, brought to you by Believe Network, and my own personal production company, Goodman Productions, the executive producers for that podcast. So it's definitely a pleasure to be here, learning from some great guys that's been in this business and been in the world, and yeah, I'm excited to chop it up with y'all, man.
Oh, no, man. We're excited too, Devin. I know we're definitely going to have plenty of time to ask about life after football and what you've been up to. And we'll talk about Lucky Underdogs again to make sure everyone subscribes over there, by the way. You can go to Believe.com or any and all of your favorite podcast platforms. Lucky Underdogs. Make sure you type in. They've been having a lot of former Notre Dame players on there as well. Some great conversations. So make sure you go subscribe to the podcast. Devin, of course, recruits of the past, right? So wanted to talk about your recruiting process a little bit. You come out of a school, Gonzaga, in the DC area that has put out a lot of talent. I mean, Notre Dame fans have seen one guy this season named Caleb Williams, who's the reigning Heisman Trophy winner. Olu Fashanu, expected to be a top 10 player in the 2024 NFL draft as well. We were joking before the podcast, but you kind of said you started the train of Gonzaga, kind of some great guys out there, man. But just first and foremost, just kind of revisiting, working back your recruiting process a little bit. Let me just hear about what the hustle and bustle was like, hearing from different schools, and just how you handled that process, kind of revisiting it a little bit.
For sure, for sure. But before we start, I got to give a shout out to my guy, Malcolm Johnson, class of '99. He was a Gonzaga grad. He was the real start of that DC to Notre Dame pipeline. That's my guy right there. He's a great guy. He's out here in LA. So that's one of my good men. So I gotta shout him out. Shout out to Malcolm Johnson, man. Go Eagles, man. But in terms of my recruiting process, it was very concise for me. I had a real plan that I wanted to have my recruitment done before my senior season. I wanted to be able to give all my attention to my team and to go out there and win a state championship. So I got my first offer. It started pretty late for me. I got my first offer in January of my junior year, which was from Boston College. And it's interesting, that was Ryan Day who gave me my first scholarship offer ever. So that was just a nice little tidbit to have happen right then and there. And then I ended up committing to Notre Dame in April of my junior year. So in those 4 months, I had got around 25 offers. You know, it was a crazy time for me. I was getting this was back before they could call you directly on your phone. So I'm getting Facebook friend requests from coaches every day, just like, hey man, this is Kirk Ferentz from Iowa. This is Scott Booker over here in Notre Dame. You know, just send me your number. I want to get on the phone with you tonight. And then I come back to school on Wednesday, like, yeah, I got Northwestern offer, UNC offer. So it was definitely a really quick time for me. And I credit my parents to really keeping my head on straight and keeping me focused on what it was that was happening and what I could gain from it.
How did you really focus on narrowing things down in that process? Like, besides Notre Dame, who was right there in the final selection before you finally decided on the Fighting Irish?
Yeah, definitely. So before I visited Notre Dame, the school that I really wanted to go to was Penn State. That was my number one school. Like, I had lunch with Bill O'Brien. I was all up and down Happy Valley, and it was only 2.5 hours from DC. So that was something that was really, you know, stuck to me. And I was on my way there. I ain't gonna lie, I was on my way. But you know, they had the Sandusky things that came out, and they just had some things that came out, and then Bill O'Brien had told me some things that ended up not being true. So to me, you know, he wasn't really a man of his word at that time, and that was something that was super important to me. Something that my father super stressed to me at the time. And, you know, because if they're gonna lie to you when you're not even there yet, once you get there, it's gonna be tough to really take their word for anything. So that was something that was really set that apart for me. And then when I got to Notre Dame, the thing that really separated them, and another shout out to my guy, Robbie Toma. He was my first ever host. I got on campus. I stayed with him in Dillon Hall. And, you know, he just rolled out the red carpet for me, treated me like I was his little brother. And I'd only known him for a couple of hours. You know, it gave me his bed to sleep in during that night. Like, didn't even put me on the couch. He went and slept on the couch. So I'm like, man, these are some real dudes. Like, I'm getting treated like I'm a teammate, and I'm just a 16, 17-year-old kid, you know, just visiting with my eyes wide, you know. So that was something that really stood out to me. I was somebody that it was really important for me for two things during recruiting, was to be able to know that the place that I was at, I would enjoy my time there if I never stepped foot on the football field again, and also have good people around me in the locker room, and people that I trusted and people that I knew I could bond and learn from.
Devin, that first trip to Notre Dame, was that a official or unofficial visit, that first one?
That was an unofficial visit. Yep. So I only took one official visit. That was to Notre Dame. That was which game was that? I think that was the senior game in 2012. Can't remember exactly who it was they played. Might have been BYU or one of those games at home. Or wait a minute, Stanford, one of those. But yeah, my junior year was when I took all of my official visits. My family, we went on spring break. We packed up the car. We drove to Michigan, Michigan State, Northwestern, Wisconsin. Then Notre Dame and Ohio State were supposed to be the last two, but I didn't even make it to Ohio State. I committed to Notre Dame before I even left campus.
Nice, man. Well, let me ask you, because Notre Dame's a very unique place, right? Just kind of seeing some other campuses and everything. What was it specifically? Because I know you mentioned Robbie Toma and kind of laying out the red carpet and really showing you, the everything that you needed to see. But what was it about, I guess, just getting on campus that really, I guess, built something in you as far as the positivity about the Notre Dame program?
Definitely. So when I got on campus that first time, it was spring ball right before the BCS championship season. So I really got to see the groundworks for that team. I got to see the intensity that they was practicing with. I got to see Manti in his element. I got to see Bennett Jackson and those guys, and Stephon Tuitt and Lewis Nix and Zach Martin and those dudes just battling at 5 a.m. on a Thursday, just getting after it. So I'm just seeing that, and I'm like, yo, this is ball. Like, this is real football right here. Like, I came from, we had good players on my team, but my old linemen were guys that was my size, basically. They was tough dudes. They had grit, they had heart. They was a little heavier, but they weren't D1 caliber dudes. So seeing D1 old linemen and D1 linebackers, like, that was something that was exciting to me, because I'm like, oh yeah, I know I'm gonna do what I can do out here on the edge. And being in some of those meetings and hearing how they was talking about the schemes and just having the knowledge that I already had and being able to say, oh, I know what I'm supposed to be doing on this play call. This is something that I ran at my high school. Like, I know what I'm reading. I know how to react. I know where the play is going to go. So I just envision myself like being easily plugged and played at Notre Dame. And that was something that just had me chomping at the bit, honestly.
Man,
How important was?
go ahead.
Sorry, Sean. You go. No, you go, Sean. You go.
No, I just like tapping into what he's talking about with the visit and coming off what he said earlier. Do you feel like more coaches lose young men in recruiting than actually getting them? Because you talked about your experience with Bill O'Brien, and then you just had the experience of watching what you watched at that practice. Like, did the coaches really have to do anything else? It seems like coaches lose players more than they actually get them to commit.
That's definitely a great point. I would definitely agree with that. I think that there's a lot of times when the coaches, they just putting a lot of fluff talk into these guys' ears. These are young dudes and they're impressionable and things like that. And I think the best mark of recruiting is when you can just leave a recruit in your locker room with your guys. You don't have to give them no sales pitch. You don't have to give them no flashy stuff. And they're just drawn by the camaraderie and by the people that are in your locker room and the makeup of your team. And that's how you end up with the right type of guys and the right mentality that's going forward with your team.
Sean, I was actually about to ask about coaching relationships, so that's why we're in sync, man. We're all the same wavelength there.
I like that. I see how y'all got it going. Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, we missed it, man. We really did. We feed off of each other really well. But Devin, I know I wanted to ask you something that we talked briefly about before we started the show, and that's about Notre Dame has had their struggles the last few cycles to get kids out of that Maryland, D.C. area. You went to Gonzaga. We talked about DeMatha Catholic. Notre Dame's going after a lot of kids out of St. Francis Academy in the 2025 class, for instance. The prominent Catholic schools that are pumping out a lot of great football players that are also tremendous academic fits for the University of Notre Dame as well. They're struggling for whatever reason to get those types of players. So I again want to flashback because you mentioned something that already kind of resonated with me a little bit. You talked about Penn State, which Penn State seems to be having a much larger impact in that area for whatever reason. So I want to ask you about your perspective on Notre Dame before they started recruiting you. What was your perspective on them? And is there any reason that maybe you think that maybe they have had their struggles in that area, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so I mean, my perspective on Notre Dame before I got a phone call from Scott Booker in 2012 was I knew my mom loved the movie Rudy. And that was really all I knew about Notre Dame. I mean, I knew Jeff Samardzija, like I knew some of those type of names, but I never really sat down and watched like a Notre Dame football game. When I was young, I was watching University of Texas, LSU. Those were some of the college teams that really stuck out to me when I was a really young kid. But once I got that phone call from Notre Dame, I finally did sit down and watch Rudy. Me and my mom, she made me do that one. And that was really beautiful. And seeing the campus and seeing just the camaraderie and the history behind the university, it was amazing, honestly. And you don't see many other schools that have something like that. And I mean, Lou Holtz said it the best. Once you get on campus, like there's no explanation that can suffice for that. So once I got on campus, it was really hard to explain. It just felt like home. Like it was one of those feelings where, I'll equate it like this. I went to University of Michigan on a visit earlier that week. And they had probably around 15 dudes that was already committed to the program that was there during the practice, and they was watching it. And I'm walking around trying to say what's up. I'm trying to, just check the temperature of the guys to see, what's up. I'm trying to be our teammate. And there's no warm reception. Like dudes is really only talking to the dudes that they already knew. They're not really trying to, it's not that camaraderie, that brotherhood. But when I go to Notre Dame, I meet somebody like Malik, and he's instantly dapping me up with the biggest smile I've seen and throwing his arms around me. Dudes like James Onwalu, Jalen Smith. I mean, we even came up with a name for our whole recruiting class, the Irish Mob 13. So like it was just instant camaraderie, and it was something that was I hadn't felt nothing like that before in any other visit that I went to or any other like camp that I went to with guys. I mean, I went to the opening, did Gridiron Kings down in Florida with ESPN high school. So, I had my opportunities to go around and meet a bunch of other dudes that I could have had the potential to be teammates with, and nobody I really gelled with like my guys at Notre Dame, man. And that was something that was super important to me because you be with them dudes every day for the next 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's really interesting because I'm just trying to understand where like the disconnect is between Maryland, DC, and where
Yeah.
Notre Dame is right now. You know what I mean? Like I don't
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like every time Notre Dame gets kids up to campus, it could be a game changer. You know what I mean? Where they finally see everything. But for whatever reason, some of the DeMathas of the world, I don't think it's any. Devin, I'll put it like this: Notre Dame's in a good spot with Kevin Humes out of St. Francis Academy in the 2025 class, for
Mm-hmm.
instance. He is one of the few kids from that area that has visited Notre Dame, and lo and behold, shocker, he likes Notre Dame after he went up there. You know what I mean? And so it's just a little bit of different. Let me ask you about Penn State's, because I think when you talk about Midwest powers, you're going to be talking about Ohio State, Michigan, which you already mentioned, Michigan, obviously, and Penn State. It sounds like there might be, because you said you're like 2.5 hours away from where you were to Happy Valley. So is it around that area? Is it like a lot of Penn State fans, like fandom? Like what's kind of the pulse of that area, I guess, as far as like what teams they like?
So I'll say the one thing about Penn State in the area, there's a lot of alumni in the area. So there's a lot, I wouldn't say it's necessarily fans per se, but there's a lot of people's, parents and just older siblings that went to Penn State. It's one of those out of state, but very close to being in-state schools. So it's not too hard for people to get into. It's not too hard for people to afford to get in, to afford to go there. So it's a state school that has a large population of our community there. So it's something that's an easy draw and an easy get for people. And I think that's something that Notre Dame's been missing. I know when I was at Notre Dame, I was hosting guys like Ashton White who came behind me. And I know he was hosting dudes like DJ Brown and Noah Boykin who came behind them, who are all from the area. And I mean, it makes it a little easier to get those guys once you have someone that they can connect with, and someone that they know has been through what they've been through and seen the things that they've seen. Yeah. So I think until we get a class of like 2 or 3 dudes from the area that stick it out, that really have success there, like Cam Hart, like DJ Brown, like once you get those guys and you get those to be the dudes that handle those recruits coming from that area, it'll start to bounce back. I mean, I know those 2 dudes are going to be getting paid on Sundays real soon, so it's going to be tough to see that, but that's just another mark that's going to prove to the area that dudes can come up here, ball, and get your money, man.
Yo, hey Ryan, maybe we can open that DC pipeline the way Marcus Freeman has opened up the St. Louis pipeline over the last 3 to 4 years. It seems like Notre Dame now just walking to St. Louis and just
North Carolina and Texas too, Sean. You're starting to get into some different areas that they haven't had much success in, man. So I agree 100%.
Yeah, and super credit to Coach Freeman and his staff and the way that they've been recruiting and just the way that they've been executing. I think the confidence that he gives his players is unmatched, and I think that goes a long, long way, man. Like I would have loved to play for Coach Freeman. Like he's one of those coaches that gets you fired up, and you can believe in the stuff that he's telling you. You can believe when he tells you that he wants something out of you. You believe that, and you're not thinking that it's just for him to gain. He wants you to succeed.
Devin, you're getting very good at this podcasting thing because you're leading me right into my next question. All right. You're leading me right in there. So Notre Dame, the sell now, you already talked about Marcus Freeman, the authentic approach he brings. He's a very attractive personality, obviously. He's got that electric personality, which is great. And Notre Dame is also developing the cornerback position, a position that you know very well, at an incredibly high level under Mike Mickens. How much of an easier sell would it have even been now if you were recruited to come to Notre Dame? Would it have been a lot easier?
Oh, yeah. I definitely think it would have been a lot easier. I mean, seeing some of the guys that have came and gone out of Notre Dame, out of the secondary in the past few years, from Julian Love on, like, it's just been, I think we've got some of the most underrated DBs that we produced in a few years. And I think I'm a huge Ben Morrison fan. Like, his older brother, Sammy, was actually my backup at Gonzaga. He was a sophomore when I was a senior. So I've been seeing Ben running around since he was probably in like 4th, 5th grade. Like he was the water boy for our team when I was a senior at Gonzaga. Shout out to the Morrison family. Big Daryl, man, he was holding it down. He played for the Skins back in the day. So they got a huge pedigree. His older brother played at University of Arizona. So he comes from a pedigree of DBs at that, not even just football players, a pedigree of defensive backs, and it shows. So Ben, he's CB1 next year, like hands down. I think if he could come out this year, like I think he has the ability to do that. Like, I think he could have been one of those 2 and done kind of dudes.
I think I'm cool with him coming back one more year.
Oh yeah, we can use that. We can definitely use that. We can definitely use that. We can definitely use that for sure, man. I'm just proud of the young buck, man, because it's a beautiful thing to see. And I thought they was gonna let him rock the 12 at Notre Dame. He had this 12 on the visit, so I was gonna definitely be hyped for that. See him in that 12. You bring that resurgence back. So, yeah, but the 20 looks good on him though.
Sean, it's funny. I was answering a mailbag earlier, and someone was asking about like cornerback, the future of the cornerback position. Actually, it's funny enough that was a question I was asked today, and I was like, it's not often that you're going to lose Cam Hart this offseason, and it's like, it'll be fine. Like Jaden Mickey and Christian Gray are going to step in, and you're like, cool, man. Like you're in a good spot. I mean. It really is a different world because, like you said, like Devin, they've always had good defensive backs, but I just feel like the depth on this team right now is just a little bit different than what we've had in the past. You know what I mean? Like, I think of like 2018, it's like Julian and Troy Pryor were great, but it's like if one of them goes down, you're getting into a little bit of a question. There's a fan question I want to bring up here that I actually think is kind of interesting, and I just want your opinion on it. So Jason Smith actually said, and I'm going to bring the question up. He said, but would he still choose Notre Dame over Penn State today? Penn State pretty far removed from the scandal. Would that have changed the process at all as far as like length from the scandal, I guess?
Yeah, I definitely would have taken that official visit to Penn State. I definitely would have done that just for myself. It was a great institution there, and it was a great vibe that I got from Larry Johnson Sr. over there. So I definitely would have taken that official visit. But I don't think that I would have chosen Penn State over Notre Dame, especially once Notre Dame went 12-0. Definitely think that would have put the icing on the cake for me that season. But I wanted to make sure that I finished my recruitment before my senior season started. So it would have definitely been something to do. It would have been interesting to see, but I'm super confident with my decision and happy with my decision to go to Notre Dame. And I think if we would have played Penn State, I would have loved to have gone to Happy Valley just to see what that was like and to beat up on them a little bit, maybe catch a pick off of Christian Hackenberg,
It's a great atmosphere. Nice. It's a great atmosphere. I went to U of I and actually went up there for a game when I was a student. It's one of those places, Neyland Stadium, Husky Stadium out in Washington. I hear Austin Stadium at Oregon is the same way. Michigan Stadium. Like if you just want to catch a college football game, it's about 6 or 7 places you have to go.
Have to go.
Have to go to Notre Dame Stadium.
Got to.
You know, that's why visiting fans always travel like crazy.
Always is. And I mean, Notre Dame game weekends are second to none. I mean, I went to Syracuse for my 5th year, so I got to see, you know, a whole side of the ACC that I didn't get to see at Notre Dame, but nothing compares to those Notre Dame game days. Like nothing. Not the CFL game days. Nothing, man.
I actually did get to go up to the Carrier Dome last year for Notre Dame's game against Syracuse. And that was cool, though, Dev. Like, that was one of the places where I was like, you know, it'd be cool to the Carrier Dome. You know what I mean? So.
Oh, no, I got a lot of love for Syracuse, man. I got a lot of love for upstate New York. They welcomed me with open arms. And, you know, I still keep in touch with a lot of those guys from that team to this day. And, you know, shout out to Dino Babers. I know they had a strong start to the season, but things kind of got off the tracks for them this year. But, you know, definitely still got love for the Orange.
Yeah. Well, and we already asked you a little bit about, you know, just how things could have changed, I guess, with the current coaching staff and everything. My last real recruiting question before maybe we get a couple fan questions in here, because everyone's really happy that you're on the show, obviously. But
man, shout out to everybody. Appreciate it.
Shout out to everyone in IB Nation, man. We had a great group here. There's no doubt. Well, let me ask you, though, because it's so funny, because what are you, like 29, maybe 30, somewhere in that ballpark?
28,
right?
28.
Oh, okay. I went a little higher.
Hold on now. Don't age me up. Hold on. I got some time still. Hold on.
All right. So you're the young guy on the podcast, because I think CJ's 29. So I think I might. Okay. That's where we are there. Okay. All right. So 28 years old, not that far removed from the recruiting process. I'm only 32. I'm not that far removed from it either. But yet we have seen so many changes since you went through the recruiting process, since I went through the recruiting process. So different. Unlimited official visits. You now have the NIL side of things, obviously, and everything that's involved in there, and the ability to profit off of your name, image, and likeness. How much would those things have changed your recruiting process, if any at all?
I definitely know that my parents would have been acutely aware of all of the changes and all of the ways that I could take advantage of this process for myself. So I know that that's something that I would have been keenly paying attention to, you know, making sure that I got the most out of every aspect that I could in this process, you know, making sure that my visits were all reimbursed or you know, and that I wasn't coming out of pocket for too much things, like just those little things. And when it came to the NIL, that was something that I definitely would have taken a huge advantage of. You know, I was a Vine star back in high school. I don't know if everybody out there remembers Vine, but I was pretty popular back then. That was one of my things. So I would have definitely leveraged my personality a lot more. That was one thing that during my recruiting process, it stuck out to me. And that was something that a lot of coaches loved about me. And one thing that Notre Dame kind of tried to put a damper on. You know, they wanted me to, you know, tweet a little more calmly on Twitter. They wanted me to be a little more friendly on Instagram and not just cater to my comedic audience. You know, that was something that I did for them. But I feel like in the long run, I was not being true to myself and my brand. And nowadays your brand is these kids, the brand that the kids have for the individual is becoming more important than the institution. And I think that that's the way it should be, in my opinion. I think that the individuals are definitely the ones who power the institutions. And I think that these kids, they need that agency and they're getting it now. And I would have loved to have had something back in my day. I mean, I think, you know, they want to look at like a back pay situation. You know, I'd love to help them out with that if they wanted to crunch some numbers for the back pay for some of the guys that missed out on it. Hey,
I know that's right.
Cool with that. I'm cool with that.
Double R. See, this is why he would be a perfect player under Marcus Freeman, right? Because I don't, DB, I don't know if you saw, you know, Plies tweeted out a video of Marcus Freeman last night talking. It really was promoting, like, why are our young men not wanting to go play for a coach like this? And why are we, as the culture, not promoting that, and promoting young men to go play for this young man? And I was like, that's crazy, especially with Plies being from the South. And traditionally, young men from the South, you know, Notre Dame is, you know, we get a couple, but really Notre Dame is kind of an afterthought. So just talk about that and how Marcus Freeman has kind of impacted the culture and kind of put
Yeah.
Notre Dame's brand in a different space, culturally speaking.
Yeah, no, I think Coach Freeman has definitely been a breath of fresh air for Notre Dame, and having someone with that youth and that vigor, that's something that's unmatched in today's realm. Like, and the interesting thing about Plies is I just learned this. He played college football at Miami of Ohio. So, him actually saying that, he's got some credit to his name when he's speaking on that. And I'm sure that people that's from his community and that know him better, they already knew that as well. So, just having somebody that's been through college sports and has been through recruiting process, and they also have a platform and they're speaking on that, that's just going to do wonders for Notre Dame. And I definitely think that it's becoming more prevalent what Coach Freeman brings to the table to college football as a whole. Even when you're looking at guys like Coach Prime, I think Coach Freeman is definitely cut from that same cloth of somebody that demands excellence of their players, gives them the tools to find that excellence, and pushes them in that way in a positive, responsible way. You know what I mean? He's a man's man. I think that anybody who wants their son to become a productive man and a great football player and learn some great lessons and get a great degree, they're going to take that chance. They're going to take that time to really hear Coach Freeman out and to take that visit to Notre Dame, and they're going to love it. Like, Notre Dame is one of those places that the visit is all you need. Like, if you take a visit to Notre Dame and you come back and decide you don't want to go there, it probably wasn't the place for you to begin with.
It's hard to explain, right? I remember the first it's like you feel the aura, like just walking the campus. I totally agree. Totally agree.
It's that greatness, it's the consistency of the years and years, hundreds of years of the football program. So it's just that consistency, and consistency is the mark of greatness. Yeah. So I think that, and I think that's something that Coach Freeman has in abundance, and something that he's continuing to just put forth. I mean, should be another 10-win season under his belt this year. One got away, but still think it's going to be a good bowl game. Still think that they're going to walk away with knowing that, one game got away. And if it wasn't for that Louisville game, we could have been playing for the big thing. You know what I mean? We could have been playing on the biggest stage. So I think that he's got the confidence, and, it's a lot of guys that were young this year that learned a lot of lessons. They took some tough knots, but they learned some lessons, and that's just going to translate into bigger and better players for next year.
No doubt. And it's so funny that you mentioned like Vines for a second. I was just thinking in my mind, like I was a teacher before I was full-time media, and I remember telling my kids about what Vines were, what AIM was. I know, Sean. I know you had a screen name, kid. Yeah, I know you had a screen name.
Vine was too short for me. I'm a little long-winded.
It's a little brief.
I'm a little long-winded, so I couldn't make
cut off trying to make the videos.
I had to explain to my kids, the kids I taught, that there was a time where you had to, when you turn on the computer, you couldn't talk on the home phone either. You know what I mean? With a little bit of dial-up. They had no idea what the heck dial-up was.
Do these kids these days even have landlines in the houses anymore? Like, is that a thing nowadays?
Like, probably not. I don't have one now, to be honest. I don't have one now. So times have definitely changed. Devin, I mean, honestly, like, they don't even know how to read like an analog clock on the thing right now, which is
literally it's tough. So I don't have any kids yet. I haven't been blessed with any kids yet. So I haven't seen that side of things yet.
It's a blessing, but little word of advice, okay? Get all the sleep you can now, and then enjoy that later. All right. So whatever that happens,
you see him, DB, and I'm like the counter. Like, mine graduates this year. I'm like,
oh yeah. The weight has been lifted, empty nesting. Oh yeah, I know you can't wait for that one.
Can't wait, bro. Cannot wait.
Oh,
man, all right. So a couple fan questions before you get out of here, Devin. Thank you so much for the time, by the way, man. This conversation has flown by. Literally, I'm like, we're up at like 35 minutes. I'm like, dang, I should get you out of here. Let's get it going here.
Oh man, it's a pleasure.
So Nathan Milton had a question. He just said, Devin, who were the most important at Notre Dame in your recruitment? He's referring to like staff members that really were big and instrumental in your recruitment.
Okay, so I definitely would say Scott Booker first. He was the first Notre Dame coach that I had contact with, and my main point of contact for recruiting. And Bob Diaco and Kerry Cooks, like the whole defensive staff, like those were dudes that I really just gelled with. Coach Cooks, to this day, I still keep in contact with him. And Bob Diaco is one of my favorite football minds of all time. Like Bobby D, man, huge shout out to Coach Diaco. I was a little hurt when he left us. You know, that was probably the one time when I thought about, you know, leaving Notre Dame early, because I was like, dang, Coach D, like, he was my man, but you slid. But you know, I stayed, and I definitely am glad that I stayed because, you know, learning from Coach Van Gorder, he was somebody, he got a bad rap, but in terms of his football knowledge, you can't knock that at all. The man knew football for sure.
And then our last question we have for you, unless someone pops in a late one here, is Jason Smith said, do you think Brian Kelly would have put Braylon James's track on to get the team hype? I know you've been seeing that media presence there.
Yeah. I don't know if BK would have gave him the love like that. I'm glad that Coach Freeman did, though, man. I'm glad that we got that love going, because once you got your guys, like, there's nothing like having your teammates pump you up and having your teammates have your back and getting that instant feedback and reaction from your guys. And yeah, that's something that had me hyped too. I was jumping around too, you know what I mean? So yeah. I'm gonna download that joint too.
That's the best part of combining the NIL era with also Notre Dame being very open to advertising that, right? That this kid is very well-rounded outside of football. This is his brand outside of football. That's what I was thinking about when you were talking about the NIL side of things, is like people like Braylon James are really profiting off of that, because now you're getting your music out there. You're getting your career after football out there potentially. I think it's great, man. I really do. So
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's a beautiful thing. That's all I was saying. It was just a beautiful thing, man.
And, you know, just to kind of just, you know, once again, talking about how beautiful, culturally speaking, that locker room and that brotherhood is, just, you know, you, CJ, Malik, just talking to you guys and just seeing how you guys interact with one another, and Cam. And it's like, yo, this is like, I know brotherhood exists in most locker rooms, but like Marcus Freeman was talking about in that video, like, yo, love, because it goes beyond. It goes for the rest of your life. It's not just about this team. And it's truly evident in the Notre Dame brotherhood. I'm a witness. I am a like up close and personal witness. Notre Dame fans, like, this is the greatest brotherhood that I've probably witnessed in college sports. You know,
for
and
sure.
maybe all sports. It is really, really special.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love Notre Dame, man. I love the Notre Dame football community and the brotherhood that we have. Like, these dudes is gonna be standing with me at my wedding, you know, right there with me when my kids is born. So I'm definitely blessed to have still connected with some of these guys, because I know dudes that play college sports and they have very little connection to their teammates, very little connection to their university still. And I was on the fringe of being one of those guys, and you know, just having the podcast and, you know, reconnecting with guys has definitely been something that's helped me get my love for Notre Dame back. And I can't wait to go to a game next year. You know, that's something that I'm planning on now, because I haven't been back to campus since my graduation in 2016. So haven't seen the new stadium, haven't seen any of the new add-ons on campus. So that's something I'm super excited for, to see how Eddie Street's transformed and it just be back around the Irish, man. You know, that's something that I've been missing, man. So I'm definitely looking forward to that, because it's good for the soul. You know, it's good for your spirit when you get around there a little bit. It's good for the spirit.
When you first got to campus as a freshman, did you try to sell the locker room on the little Zach Brown Mambo sauce, Rare Essence, you know?
Yeah, they knew it was up. They knew it was up. Everybody knew I was playing that go-go all the time, man. I played go-go in the locker room when I got a chance. Anybody came to my dorm room, oh yeah, I'm playing that go-go, man. They know what's up. So Rare Essence, that's a little bit before my time. I know about it.
Right.
I'm a backyard band kind of dude, man.
Yes,
it's
sir.
Real classic, man.
Okay.
Shout out to Big G. You know what I mean? RIP to Polo and TCB, man. That's a great culture right there, brother. Like, I'm glad you brought that up, man. Shout out to DC, man.
If you know, you know. And you know, you're out there in LA. I know you probably still searching for somewhere where you can get some Mambo sauce.
Yeah. I mean, they got that on. They got it on at McDonald's now. I've been seeing the commercials. They got the
That
Mambo sauce at McDonald's. I'm like, yeah,
nah,
somebody
that ain't
needs to
it.
get sued for that. They're getting sued for that by somebody for real.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been homesick a little bit. I've been homesick a little bit. I've been out here for about a year now, but I'm out here. I'm acting now full time. I got my production company that I've been working for. Definitely been executive producing some music for my brother. If you guys want to check it out, you can check me out on Instagram, D_Butler7. And my brother, his music is Wheelchair Jimmy. It's WILL Chair Jimmy, JIMI. And we just got a few projects that we've been working on, and definitely would love to get some feedback from my Irish family, man. Just let me know, give us a little bit of love, shout us out. Even if you don't like it, shout us out and tell us to step it up, do a little bit better. That's what we need. Constructive is all we always helping for that, man. Always.
Yeah. Well, Devin, I was about to ask you to start plugging some after football stuff that you've been doing. You mentioned the production company. I know, man,
I
we're
jumped the
all
gun a
in
little
sync on
bit.
this podcast right now, man.
No doubt, no doubt. It's not my first rodeo,
It
Yeah.
definitely isn't, man. It definitely is. Well, as we get you out of here, talk a little bit about Lucky Underdogs that you're doing with CJ Procise and just kind of your excitement over continuing to build that brand in the podcast.
Oh, yeah. So I'm super excited about the Lucky Underdogs podcast, how it came with Believe, just super organically. I got hit up from one of the producers from Showtime that did the show, The Season with Notre Dame for us a few years ago. I had kept in contact with him, and he said one of his buddies, I believe, was looking for a host for a Notre Dame podcast. And I got on the phone with her, and in about 5 minutes, we were talking, and she said, "Okay, well, how do you want the show to go?" And I'm thinking that I was doing the whole audition. And she's like, no. We're talking about how the show is going to go. And so it's just been really, really organic how it came about. And I'm super excited about it. The team underdog was something that we had on our team at Notre Dame. It was really about the guys that didn't really get the public eye. They didn't get the love from the media. They were kind of those under the radar guys, but they were those lunch pill dudes that brought their hard hat to work every day. CJ was one of those guys, but he kind of graduated from Team Underdog once he was, getting direct TV commercials and stuff like that. But that's neither here nor there. He's an alumni. He's a Team Underdog alumni. So we always love those guys, But it's been great. We've had Brady Quinn on, we've had Joe Theismann, Catherine Taggart. So it's been great, and it's been something that's just continuing to grow. And I can't wait to hopefully get some live games. Maybe get a stream there once next season when the season starts. Maybe get on campus and host a show on campus. Those are some of the things that I'm looking forward to doing next year as we grow.
Absolutely. Lucky Underdogs, again, Believe Podcast Network, but you can also catch it on any and all of your favorite podcast platforms. Make sure you go check it out. Devin, you were so nice with your time today, man. I really appreciate it. I was planning on keeping you for like 20 minutes, and then a great conversation turned into 43 minutes. So we appreciate you so much, man. We'll have to have you back on at some point, but thank you for thank you for sharing your story. Good luck with everything. Podcast building, man, and hope to stay in touch. Okay.
No doubt. Thank you guys, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time. You guys are awesome, brother. Y'all are awesome, man. And call me back anytime. I'm happy to get on.
Awesome. There's Devin Butler, former Notre Dame cornerback, doing a lot of great things here. Sean, that was one of my favorite interviews, truly, man, because I usually am pretty good with not holding people too long on podcasts. You know what I mean? I'm usually not, but I was having a great conversation. Literally, I looked up and I'm like, man, we're at 34 minutes already. That's it's a little longer, but
he has great stories. I knew about his relationship, connection to the Morrison family, and he has a great story. He actually coached Caleb Williams for a little bit at Gonzaga, and he actually has the backstory to why the fingernails got painted. This goes back to, you'll hear a lot of former Notre Dame players, saying like, yo, I used to try and call the office to get Notre Dame interested in guys, and they wouldn't pick up. We've had several former players say that, and if that was the situation with DB and Caleb Williams, and that's like the backstory to what ended up being painted on the nails, when he was the coach there. So yeah, man, that DC area has been a gold mine for Penn State for a
Yes, it has.
long time. I'm
Yes, it
talking
has.
about going back to like Joe Paterno.
And
So
Virginia too. Even getting down in the
yes,
Virginia area has been big. Brent Pry made a living off of getting great defenders from
yes,
Virginia. So, yep.
yes. So pretty much that, pieces of Virginia, DC, all the way up to Baltimore, that whole DMV area. Like you can find some really good players in that area. And I think, recently Notre Dame is kind of going into Virginia. And yeah, the
Yep.
Hillman situation didn't work out the way
Right.
we every time I mention his name, you can see Ryan's facial expression.
Well, luckily, if Michigan messes this thing up, Sean, and people start transferring, like if Brendan Hillman
hmm
wants to come back to Notre Dame, he's
hmm
more than welcome, sir.
hmm
More than welcome. But yeah, that situation was a mess.
hmm
Gosh, this situation was a mess. But to your points, Bodie Cahoon in the 2024 class out of the state of
hmm
Virginia, you're recruiting that spot more and more. So, but yeah, Penn State is had a little bit of a stranglehold over that area a little bit recently. I mean, outside of, I know Jason Moore picked Ohio State over Notre Dame out of obviously the Maryland, out of DeMatha Catholic, but Notre Dame definitely needs to make a bigger impact there because there is a load of talent. I need to ask you before we move on to the mailbag. We are going to do a mailbag, by the way, in the middle section before our next guest. So make sure, throw mailbag questions in there. I think we already have like 15, 20 questions that are all ready to go here, but keep throwing mailbag questions in. There's going to be a little bit of an extended mailbag today in the chat. Sean, I need to ask a question. I wasn't going to try to play it off like I knew what you guys were talking about. What is mambo sauce? I have no idea what that is. No idea.
Look, in
Yes.
Chicago, we have mouth sauce, right? It's like this sauce that everybody puts on their chicken. It's just the city sauce. Mumbo sauce is a little bit spicier than mouth sauce, but it is like if you go to any fast food restaurant with like fried chicken or in the DC area, dude, give me a 6-wing with mambo sauce. It is like you grow up on it, and it is culturally the thing. It's go-go music, mambo sauce. Like that's if you go to DC, just know, find a go-go music club and relax, and you'll have a great time with your missus. And then go out late night, find a nice little, spot, and walk in and tell them, man, give me a 6-wing, a 4-wing, mambo sauce on the fries.
See, I've heard of go-go music. I've heard
Mm-hmm.
of that. I've never heard of mambo sauce though. This
Yeah,
is a new one in the Robert's mind right now. I've
yeah.
never heard
And
of that.
like it's like a big thing. I forget what the sauce is in Detroit. But it's all since I've been a kid, it's always been like this debate between DC, Detroit, and Chicago, like who has the best sauce.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, it's all on the list, man. I'll have to try it. I'm a big fan of flavor and a little bit of spice, so hopefully it's got a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of spice in there, and I'm down for it, man. I'm very down for it. So that was the interview though with Devin Butler, former Notre Dame cornerback, doing a lot of great things in his post Notre Dame career. Obviously, want to thank him again for coming on. Was so cognizant with his time and just giving us all the availability that we want. Make sure to go follow him everywhere, and make sure you go follow Lucky Underdogs as they continue to grow that podcasting brand. We're going to go to the mailbag next. Again, throw those mailbag questions in the chat. We're going to hit a bunch here before we have Josiah Kia, star 2025 linebacker out of the state of Hawaii, on the show here soon. But make sure before we do, you please hit that like button, subscribe to the podcast, hit that notification bell. But that's going to end this section of Notre Dame Recruiting Hour on the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Shawnee, favorite time of the year, man. Favorite time of the day. Favorite time of recruiting hour each and every week. Got some mailbag questions, man. Got them all. We're going to work through a bunch of these. Again, these don't have to be exclusive to recruiting. You can definitely ask recruiting questions, but ask us about Notre Dame. Ask us about college football. Ask NFL questions. Ask anything questions. I mean, we're talking about mambo sauce on here, for God's sake. So if you want to throw some food questions on there, more than welcome to do that. Sean, we had a question I thought was pretty interesting. This one was put out. I love some of the crew here are so awesome, man, because Jason Smith literally put this one out a half an hour before the show even started, man. So we had several questions on the show before the show even started today. Jason Smith said, my dad just called me and was watching the Kedron Young highlights I sent him. Of course, Kedron Young, star running back, 2024 class out of Lufkin, Texas. He had a comparison to Alex Collins, former Arkansas running back that has played in the NFL for a little bit here. Just want to get a thought here, Sean, or your opinion on a comp to Alex Collins. For me, I see where it's coming from, Jason. I actually don't hate the comp. I really don't. I see a physical, densely built runner, low center of gravity. I just think that Keidron Young's a little bit more explosive than Alex Collins. Is my only thing. So that's my opinion, Sean. Would love to get your insight on it.
I would agree with that. Alex Collins, though, man, you talk about a guy at Arkansas that really, and he overachieved, in my opinion, at Arkansas. I really didn't expect him to be the player that he ended up being. So, but I mean, if you're gonna have a comp, that's not like disrespectful, but like you said, Keidron's more explosive. I think Keidron has a little bit more shiftiness than Alex Collins as well. Alex was like what, from South Florida?
That sounds right.
Fort Lauderdale area or something like that.
That sounds right. I'll look it up, but I think because I remember Alex Collins as 5'10", 5'11", 217 pounds, and he was like a bowling ball, man. Like he was just physical runner. And I think that Keidron can do a lot of those things, right? Like you can do a lot of those things. But I think what separates Keidron for me is that kid's a 215, 220-pound kid that when he gets a crease, he's able to house call it. Like he's got a little bit more juice than you would anticipate. My Notre Dame comp has always been Jonas Gray because I thought Jonas Gray was that kind of dude too, where like you looked at him, you're like, that's a physical downhill runner. But then he could crease you occasionally where you're like, oh, he's got a little bit more juice than maybe you anticipated Jonas Gray having. So, but Jason, I do like I do like part of your father's comp as far as the physicality aspect. I do think that there's a lot of parallels there. So yeah, interesting.
It's funny. This is why I remember he is from Fort Lauderdale, Plantation High School.
Oh, he's
and the
Plantation
reason
guy.
I remember it, my father had a conference every year in Florida, in Plantation, and every year that Wednesday of the conference would be National Signing Day. And I'll never forget, that was the big local story. One year I was down. That's why Alex Collins stuck with me. I'm like, yo, he's from Fort Lauderdale. He went to Plantation. Yeah. That is, I remember the whole day. Like that's all people talked about down there. So yeah, rest in heaven to him. And yeah.
I forgot he had passed away, man.
Yeah.
He was one of those dudes, man. Like he just ran. He was like what a Seattle Seahawk running back was for a long time, right? Where it's like you went from Marshawn Lynch, Alex Collins was mixed in there, and then you had Chris Carson. It's just like they've always had these like stupid physical runners. You know what I mean? Like these guys that you just could not tackle. So
wow,
I
remember his whole. Yeah, it was a big day. I remember that for a young kid.
Yeah. Plantation. So they put out some talent back in the day, man. Back in the day, I haven't heard their name too much recently, but they put out some talent. There's no doubt about that.
I think IMG really kind of infringed on. Yeah,
that makes sense. That definitely makes sense. We had a question here that's coming up from Michael. It said, Mailbag, in the 2025 class, many of the secondary players have been mentioned to be athletic, fast enough to play safety or cornerback. What position do you see these individuals landing at? Ivan Taylor, Dallas Golden, Creed Thomas. Interesting, Sean. I actually had an extra recruiting show that came out this morning where I talked to Michael about this very same topic of there's a lot of different combinations in 2025 in the secondary that I think make a lot of sense because there's a lot of kids that have the versatility to do multiple things. Like there's not just a guy that's just a boundary corner or just a field corner or just a box safety. Like I think there's a lot of guys that can do a little bit of everything, which makes it interesting. Let's start here, Sean. Ivan Taylor. What positions do you feel like Ivan Taylor can play on the field?
Both safeties, if he wants to. A little bit of nickel.
Yes.
And I'm always interested to see how young men grow physically when they get to know that. I think a great example of that, in my opinion, is that Xavier Watts, in my opinion, has become a lot more rangier. Of course, that comes with learning a position and getting faster at the position. But I think physically, I've seen Xavier, like the USC game, he came up and laid some wood. Like we've
Yes, he
seen the
did.
interception in center field, but he came up
Oh,
and
man.
laid some wood. And I'm like,
He got
okay,
Marshawn Lloyd on the
Lord,
sideline on that
yeah,
one, man.
yeah, yeah. So I he's versatile, but safety, I think, is where Ivan Taylor's gonna land, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think eventually he's going to be just a pure safety. But Sean, I would be very interested with Ivan Taylor early on in his career. If
Hmm.
you don't have an answer at nickel, and
Yeah,
I don't know what the
yeah.
nickel position is going to be at that point. I mean, because like I'm actually thinking about 2024, the 2024 season. I'm like, I don't really know what the nickel position is going to be in 2024 because obviously Thomas Harper's going to be gone. Is that Micah Bell time? Is Jaden Mickey, playing inside a little bit with maybe Christian Gray taking a hold of the other spot outside of Benjamin Morrison, opposite side of Benjamin Morrison? I'm very interested in just the nickel position in general, kind of moving forward. But I would say for me, like Ivan Taylor. Oh, what is this? Ryan Loftus, can you just reword that question? I don't understand. I have no beef with Bobby Knight if that was for me. I'm not really sure where that came from. But I think that Ivan Taylor could be a guy that if you need a plug and play guy to play nickel early on, I think that he could potentially do those things very early in his career because he's got that change of direction, man coverage skills, and he's also obviously physical enough where if you need him to fit into that, from a slot, I think that he can do a lot of things in the run game as well. So I'm there with Ivan Taylor as a potential nickel, maybe even early on, and then transitioning to a safety position. I think it makes a lot of sense. Dallas Golden is a very interesting football player because, like Sean, if you see him at obviously he goes to Berkeley Prep in Tampa Bay area in Florida. Dallas Golden at 6'1", 175 pounds or so. He plays a lot of offense for Berkeley Prep. He plays a whole lot of running back, plays in space a little bit, but most of his stuff is on offense. He does play some defense, obviously. But he is a player that Notre Dame likes as a corner. And I think that he is a traditional boundary corner for Notre Dame, potentially on the next level, because he has the length, the size, and then the speed to match up against some of the boundary receivers into the short side of the field, because there's going to be a lot of one-on-one coverage there because it's a lot harder to get safeties over the top to the boundary consistently. You want to play them obviously more towards the fields. But I think he can play boundary. Could he play field? Sure. I think he's actually a better boundary corner potentially than Fields, but he also could definitely play safety. There's no doubt. I think that Dallas Golden physically, he is a strong enough, powerful of enough athlete that he can work inside. There's no doubt about it. So I could see him being a guy that plays both corner, outside corner, and safety during his career potentially. I mean, it's really kind of up to how his body grows for me. But Notre Dame does like him as a corner to start off his career. We'll see, obviously, as that develops. Creed Thomas, another very interesting one because we have literally seen Creed Thomas do both things already in his high school career. As a sophomore, he was playing outside corner and obviously did a lot of great things for Brophy Prep out there in the state of Arizona. Same high school as Benjamin Morrison, obviously, in the 2025 recruit. In the Creed Thomas is in the 2025 recruiting class. So he did a lot of great things as a sophomore, which is at corner, which is why Notre Dame offered him. They offered him as a corner. But now we're seeing as a junior, Creed Thomas is actually playing inside as a safety. And he looks good. I actually think he looks really good as a safety. He's had like 3 or 4 interceptions this year. He's had a interception for a touchdown. And as his body continues to develop, I wouldn't be shocked if he's a free safety type of player. And I think that that is on the table for Notre Dame. I believe that they see just kind of what we have been deducing and talking to Cree. I think that it's very open as far as you're a corner, you're a safety. We'll see, as body types continue to develop and how they mature as football players. But I think that those things are certainly on the table for sure. And a great question, Michael, because I think this is the great part of this question is I don't think you even had to limit it to these 3. They can all play multiple spots. But I look at guys like Devin Williams out of Buford in the state of Georgia, 2025 corner, who I think could also play nickel. Mark Zachary is a player that also plays safety as a junior in high school out of Ben Davis in Indianapolis, Indiana. He could potentially play inside on the next level. I think he's more of a corner nickel type as well. Kevin Humes, I think, is another kid that could play outside corner or nickel. You have Jadon Blair at 6'4" out of the state of North Carolina that could play as safety and also potentially play rover on the next level if his body develops the right way. So there's a lot of guys that Notre Dame is prioritizing that I look at and say, that guy can do a lot of different things potentially for a defense, which is why I think secondary recruiting in 2025 is so intriguing. And I'm just really interested in seeing how everything finishes up, Sean, because I think that it's not even limited to these three football players. Notre Dame has a lot of defensive backs, both corner and safety alike in the 2025 class on the board that can do so many different things. And I think that in today's game, that's so important, right? It's so important because you're playing a lot more sub, a lot more defensive backs on the field now. But also, there's going to be a situation where you're going to have a guy like, I'm going to use Zay Flowers for an argument, right? Where it's like Zay could play outside at Boston College, you could play inside at Boston College. You know, it'd be great if you had a corner that can match up with him anywhere on the field. So let's say it's a Mark Zachary in the 2025 class where it's like he has the body type and the quickness that it's like, okay, Zay's outside, Mark, you're his. Zay's on the inside, Mark, move inside. I think we're moving away from the guys are strictly boundary corners. Guys are strictly field corners. I think things are getting a little bit more interchangeable so that matchups don't dictate for the offense as much as they can.
And then complimentary speaking, right? You know, Coach Drinkowitz, talked about having Luther Burden outside.
Yes.
And then getting the receivers in to allow Luther Burden to move strictly inside, and how he's taken off, because that's really it's not that he can't play outside receiver, but if you put him inside, like, it seems like he begins to just be able to use the best part of his skill set. And it's the same for me. It's the same thing as safety. Like, it's not just having guys that are flexible and versatile, but how do they complement each other? Like, how does this guy play next to this guy? And if I put him in, because Thomas Harper, I'm sure, could play safety.
Oh, if you wanted to, yeah. Yep.
But like, you throw him at the nickel, and he's done a very admirable job, being healthy. And honestly, teams, it's so funny when you line up a healthy Notre Dame secondary. Most teams identify, okay, let's go after Thomas Harper. we don't want to go after Cam Hart. We don't want to go after Ben Morrison. I expect Clemson and Cade Klubnik to do the same thing, or attempt to do the same thing, either with the tight ends or the interior receivers. So, I didn't really hear what you said about Golden. But, Cree Thomas and Ivan Taylor are two of my favorites. I can just tell you that right now. They're two of my favorites. I really love Ivan Taylor. And like I said, I think the versatility that Mike Mickens and O'Leary have to be licking their chops. And I don't know if I said this, because you look, early returns. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of nodding my head at Chris O'Leary in this 25 class, like, okay.
And Sean, he's done a really good job with the safety position this season, has he not, man? I mean, has he not?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
You got to give him some credit, man. Like I always talk about, the recruiting needs to be better. Mm-hmm. It looks like it's trending in a great direction in 2025, to your point, but also Chris O'Leary. I mean, you took a kid that had barely played safety before the season, and he's leading college football in interceptions right now. Now, obviously, you got to give a lot of credit to Xavier Watts, but you also have to give credit to the guy that's tutoring him every single day. And the later part of the season, I haven't noticed DJ Brown, which is a great thing. That means that DJ Brown's just making plays and he's not hurting you, right? Like I think most times when you see DJ, it's for a negative reason. Like he's doing his job. Ramon Henderson, the last couple games, doing their job. Like that's what you need, in my opinion.
That's why what you just said, Ryan, going to what you do in your evaluation of players for the next level. More players can stick on teams because they know how to do their job.
Yeah.
Coaches love See, that's when Notre Dame players, the majority of them, stick in the league because they know how to do it. I was just talking, I'm like, yo, man, Nick McLeod is still in the league, or
He's
this
doing
person's,
fine, man. He's
yeah,
doing
it's
fine.
like,
Yeah.
and you listen to all these defensive backs that played at Notre Dame, or defensive linemen that played at Notre Dame. It was another guy. I just, dude, I'm watching the Bears last Sunday night, and I'm like, when did we get Khalid Kareem? Like, what? Notre Dame players just seem to stick in the league, man. There is something
Yeah.
to be said for doing. DJ Brown will probably find a way to stick in the league.
Yep.
I'm being flat out honest.
Because
DJ Brown will find a way to stick in the league.
you know why I think it is too, Sean, is because part of the NFL evaluation and staking on a team is also from the personality and cultural side of things, right? And I think for the most part, and this is a generalized statement, but for the most part, you don't have to worry about that with Notre Dame kids, right? Like they're usually very well rounded and like they're grounded in their faith and they're grounded in their personal experiences and like. So I just think off the field, you don't have to worry about them that much. And for like fringe guys that are more depth pieces like Nick McLeod, like Khalid Kareem, it's like, I don't have to worry about that kid. He's going to come to work every day. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to worry about him. I think it matters. So, yeah. All right. We had Sean, we had a question that just got answered that I just want to work on now because unfortunately with our interview that's going to come up in a little bit, we might not get to every question because I asked these people for questions in the chat, all the loyal listeners out there, and they flooded it, man. They got so many great questions in here. So we're going to work through as many as we possibly can, folks. Joe Alt-Delete said this, Sean, and I had no idea about this, and I'm actually looking at the tweet right now, and I just wanted to talk about this for a second. Joe Alt-Delete says, thoughts on Quincy Avery's comments on Twitter about inner city kids would hate to go to school in South Bend. So I wanted to look this up, Sean, because I didn't know this. So
was this in response to Plies?
Plies, yep.
Okay.
Plies put this out. Quincy Avery, who's a private quarterback coach, works with guys like Trey Lance and Desmond Ritter and guys like that, right? Deshaun Watson. Big Deshaun Watson defender, by the way. We'll talk about that another time, but whatever. He quote tweeted the video, and he said, "A great coach and wishing him the best, but no black kid from the city could be anything but miserable in South Bend," was the direct thing that he said. And Sean, I honestly I want to open this up to you to start this conversation because you are a black man, right? Like I want to open this up. And the greatest thing of my teaching career was I taught at a charter school, which was mostly black and, black, brown, and coloreds, right? It was the thing, right? And I remember the first time that I had really kind of taken a step back and talked to different demographics of kids, I quickly understood that I can't fully understand what they think about that, right? And what they're experiencing and what safety means to them and the different terminologies, right? So I want to get your thoughts on this for what Quincy Avery said, because I have my opinions, but you as a black man, I think have a very good, like a unique perspective on what he said here.
I think Quincy Avery is missing the boat because when you start to talk about minorities, there is no cookie cutter form. Like all minorities are like this or think like this from the inner city. So what he speaks of is not representative of everyone that comes from the inner city. So I would disagree with him on strictly from that point of view. There are plenty. There was a pipeline from the inner city. Had Chris Zorich. I can go down the line. Bryant Young, who was from. If you've ever driven through Chicago Heights and seen where Bryant Young came from, like dude, and he matriculated very well, and his son is going to become the Notre Dame now. So, Corey Minor, somebody we spoke to this week from Compton, he did pretty okay. At Notre Dame. So Notre Dame doesn't have to defend itself against a statement like that, which is misguided. I won't say, I think his thought process and what he's trying to say is really speaking to certain regions. Now, do I feel that way about inner city kids from the South and Southeast? I would probably say, Liberty City kids aren't probably going to rock with Notre Dame or might not do as well at Notre Dame as kids from St. Louis, Chicago, or other inner cities in the Midwest. Or Notre Dame has had a pipeline to inner city. Devin Butler's from DC. So,
Yes.
so, and he spoke glowingly about Notre Dame. We've had plenty of young men from the LA. I just talked about Corey Minor. Look, Oklahoma, the inner city, the Brooks brothers. They didn't come from the greatest place out in Oklahoma. And Tony, Reggie, great young men, great ambassadors for the university. So
and they thrived, right?
Yeah, so he tried to respond, and it might be a certain segment that he can speak for that, okay, you're right about kids like that from the inner city or that come from this background in the inner city.
Yeah.
But like that doesn't speak for every inner city kid, right? That's like saying every inner city
that's what I'm
kid.
saying.
Like, dude, you know how many intelligent young people that I've mentored from disenfranchised situations in the inner city of Chicago? And that's one of the things I dislike, just, young men that play sports being characterized as dumb jocks, especially if they're minorities. We need to get over that. It's 2023 and stop trying to apply something like that to Notre Dame when Notre Dame has too much of a history of having success with young men from the inner city coming through, matriculating, and being great on and off the field. That right there is something that I think is very weak from Quincy Avery. Very weak.
I'm glad that I'm kind of on the same wavelength than you then, Sean, because I read that and I just said, isn't that grouping a lot of people into one bucket and just saying everyone's the same? And what happened to individuality and people? Like, people have different interests, people have different unique personalities, people have different strengths and weaknesses. And I feel like a statement like that is just saying every black kid from an inner city can't thrive at Notre Dame. They all can't. And I'm just like, that's not true. It's not true at all. Just like every kid from a well-off situation in suburban America is not going to do well at Notre Dame either. Like, they're not, like, not every one of them are either going to do well either, whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're Latino or whatever. Like, I just think that grouping stuff is, I just think it's really unfair. You know what I mean? Like, so like every, I don't know. I just think about like some of the kids that even we talk to and the recruiting side of things. It's like, I'm supposed to have a rash decision on a kid that he's not going to make it at Notre Dame because of where he came from. I think that's so misguided. And I just think that's weak, man. I think it's
weak.
Take
a kid like Drake Bowen, right?
Yeah.
Background from down south. He comes up, he ends up spending the majority of his time in Northwest Indiana. Most people don't know that his father, for almost 15 years, taught at one of the most prestigious inner city schools in the city of Chicago, right? And before that, he taught at one of the most dangerous high schools in the city of Chicago on the south side. Like, I've had this discussion with his dad. I went to Morgan Park, Finger High School, which is one of the most dangerous high schools on the south side, is like 10 minutes from Morgan Park. And he taught there and then went on to Whitney Young, which, has put out great people like Michelle Obama and other great people. So look, and Drake Bowen is growing up in this atmosphere in the inner city. Drake Bowen has plenty of experience in the inner city of Chicago, spending time. He said, yeah, I used to take him with me to Finger. I used to take him with me to Whitney Young. So this is not just a kid that's only been exposed to the South and Northwest Indiana. He spent plenty of time in the inner city of Chicago. Very well-rounded, very well-balanced, and you get a fantastic young man. It is like people, that tag of inner city, and I think the negative effect, just allow me to go out on this ledge for a second, right? Because it has upset me that Notre Dame people, I've seen Notre Dame fans use that inner city. Justin Scott's parents, can't afford, his tuition at one of the most expensive, like, dude, the richest of the rich in the city of Chicago send their kids to St. Ignatius. My parents, my father had his own business. My mom had a job. Like, and we were, we did very well as a family. They would have had to get a scholarship for me if I had gone to St. Ignatius. So does that label me like, oh, and he definitely is chasing NIL? Oh, you're talking about tuition $18,000 a year, for a high school. That's ridiculous.
It is crazy.
18 to 20 stacks.
I coached at a Catholic school here in New Jersey, which was the same thing, like a private school that was like around the same thing. It was like $15K a year. I was like, that's nutty, man. That's nutty.
So people find out like personal information about kids, and like, dude, they type them, they stereotype them. Like, no one would have said any if he had chosen to come to Notre Dame. It's like, oh, he's such a smart kid. He's so well rounded, but he chooses to go Ohio State. Oh, well, obviously he's on scholarship at St. Ignatius, so man, he's definitely chasing NIL.
Sean, you know my favorite one? Sorry to cut you off, but my favorite one was, remember when the Justin Scott Miami stuff was happening, right? That conversation, and everyone's like, "Oh, he clearly doesn't care about education." I'm like, Miami's a good
Miami's
school.
one of the best schools. It's like literally the Ivy League school of the South or something like that, especially for medical school. It's look, now I will say this. A school like Notre Dame has to put in the work in inner cities.
I agree.
They should have pipelines to prominent Catholic schools all over the nation. It's a perfect culture set up. Absolutely. Now you start talking about public school kids in the inner city. You have to put in the work. And that's one of the things I've lamented. Tom Lemming has said the same thing recently. Like that Notre Dame flag that used to fly really high in the inner city of Chicago is flying a little bit lower right now. And that's not on this current staff. I'm gonna be honest, the current staff is fighting against the failures of the previous staff. That's what they're doing right now, and they put in work in St. Louis, and now they're reaping the harvest of that. They're going back to the DMV area. They're reaping the harvest of that. And, that's fine. I think they're doing an amazing job getting certain guys interested in Florida that normally might not have been interested in Notre Dame. So, and they haven't been able to do that since like Lewis Nix, going back that far, especially at key positions like defensive tackle. So, look, just give Marcus Freeman plies. What you said was absolutely amazing. And I can speak for our culture and our community. Yes, we should be celebrating a head coach like Marcus Freeman. And yes, we should be the ones leading the charge saying, stop stereotyping our young men. They're better than that, not just athletically, but academically as well. Respect them for that and push them to be mentored by men like Marcus Freeman, and to go to institutions that's going to set them up for life and make them great leaders of the future, like the University of Notre Dame. It's applause to you, Plies. I tip my cap to you for coming out and saying something like that, because for you to say that, that's not a popular thing. The position he's in as an entertainer and a rapper from Florida, from the South, talking about a school and an institution, we know what Notre Dame stands for. We know what it stands for, and it's in the Midwest. He took a chance. So I applaud you, young man. I applaud you.
I agree. I love the post. I think that the response is a little bit misguided, or not a little bit misguided. I think it's very misguided, but it's a conversation for a different day. I think, again, I'm not in the business of generalizing and putting everyone into a bucket and saying that's who they are. Like, that's
Ryan, we're all at some point guilty of generalizations.
Oh, we are. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. I'd like to think as I'm getting older, I'm less
absolutely,
guilty of it. You know what I mean? So yes,
absolutely.
I agree 100% though. And it's how we were born, how we were raised, what society told us it was. Like, yeah, there's a lot of outside factors there, obviously. All right, moving on to some recruiting topics. DM ND13 and Sean. Truly, before I get to this question, thank you so much for being open about that was my biggest joy again of teaching was I met so many different types of people, and I think openness to conversation is where growth begins. Right. So
Yeah.
thank you for that conversation, man. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Absolutely.
DNND13 over under on 0.5 or so 1/2 public commitments between now and Monday mailbag show. This Monday, Dad, going under on public commitments for this Monday. I know everyone's super excited. They're all following Deuce Knight on Twitter, right? I get it. Look, I think that there is some things that will be on the horizon, folks, and I'll leave it at that, right? I think there's some things that are on the horizon. But will there be a public commitment before Monday? I would be very surprised. I'd be very surprised if anything happened this weekend, but things are trending in a great direction with the 2025 class that we've talked about a ton at this point. So. All right. Connor Patton had a question here, Sean. We'll get this one up and I'll let you start this one as well. So Connor Patton says, what would be the biggest recruiting win for a character leadership standpoint? Actually, I'm a little confused on what the question's asking. What would be the biggest recruiting win for make? Oh, so we're talking about a player's character leadership. Okay, so I mean, 2025, Sean. I think we already got one. Deuce Knight was a pretty massive victory from a leadership perspective, right? I mean, I guess I'll reword the question to say like 2025 kids. Who would be a big win that would be like the trailblazer for the group, the leader of the group, guys that are going to help recruit and to help build a class, I guess, if that makes sense.
And this is coming from the same area. I think Taylor is not, this is not me comping players, but just like the type of people they are. Him and Cam Williams are like those Pied Piper types that would like literally commit. And like the next thing you know, they're at every game, every event, connected with Deuce, and they're working together. And it's like you constantly see them on social media. So, you know what? For some reason, because I'm trying not to jump the gun here, I'll say this: there's a certain defensive player in the secondary in the 25 class that I believe is similar to that. And I'll just leave it at that. I'll leave it at that. I think it was one of the names we just talked about.
Gotcha.
Previously, yeah.
Sean, I have another Chicago kid for you. I have another Chicago kid that I think actually fits this. He doesn't talk as much as like Deuce does, obviously. But you know who I think would be a very big get for Notre Dame as far as perception would be Christopher Burgess, defensive end in Simeon out of
Notre Dame getting a public school kid
out of Chicago. He can't like it in South Bend, Indiana. What are we talking about?
Are you kidding me? That would be huge. That's great.
Yeah, man. He because I really think that he is a young man, Burgess. That one. He's the type of player that Notre Dame needs to consistently get. These 6'4", long, athletic defensive ends that can really get after the quarterback and have a body type where you're just like, that kid's probably an NFL player if he's developed properly. Like he looks the part, right? But also, he's got name recognition already. He's considered a top 100 recruit by multiple platforms. He could end up being what Justin Scott wasn't in this past class as far as the homegrown kid staying home to play football, right? And I think that could make a big assertive push of like, Christopher Burgess is coming, baby. He's coming. And so I think Christopher Burgess could be a kid like that. You mentioned Ivan Taylor, I think, is another kid that makes sense there. Taylor, I think, makes sense.
Yeah.
There's a few guys I think could have that effect.
And just, sometimes you go in and when you lose out on a kid, that's, you just want to get in. Like, yeah, we lost this kid in 23, but it gives you an opportunity and another kid that probably would have never looked at you because they heard that this kid put Notre Dame in the top 3 or the Final 4. So hearing about Justin Scott and knowing that Malik Elzy would have probably chosen Notre Dame, if the numbers were right,
Mhm.
and he played with Burgess, and that's someone that Burgess looked up to and watched him go through the recruitment, and his
Yep.
coach was very fond of Notre Dame during the process. All of this works, man. This is why, you know, you win some, you lose some in these
Yes.
situations with public schools. Man, but you go and you work the system, you work the city, you grind, you establish the relationship with the coaches, and then hey, maybe you don't get a Marquise Lightfoot from Kenwood Academy. That's fine. What about the next kid that's
Right.
coming through Kenwood Academy?
And it really goes back to the Quincy Avery conversation of public school kid from Chicago comes to
Mm-hmm.
Notre Dame. You know why? Because Notre Dame's reach right now under Marcus Freeman is different, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not just the Catholic schools around the country. You can go down to Loosedale, Mississippi and find a quarterback. You can go back into I know Highland Home, excuse me, in Alabama is a really good school. I know that is one that makes sense. But like you can
Mm-hmm.
go to Alabama and get a defensive end out of there that you never do. Like you never make that happen, right? So I think that Notre Dame is showing that they are open to different demographics of people and different types and different fits because you're Notre Dame, man. You have enough support that if a kid is able to flourish at Notre Dame, you can help him flourish at Notre Dame. Even if it's a borderline kid as far as grades perspective, but you know that kid's going to work hard, he's going to put the work in, and he's going to potentially flourish. And I think that Notre Dame is much more open than they ever were in recent years on that. So I'm happy, man. I'm very happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, by the way.
Is a great question. Real quick, Sexy Man has a couple questions here, Sean, which is still so weird to say on a podcast. Sexy Man says, how are we looking for Carter Nelson? I would say like it's been very 50-50 recently on this one, the 2024 tight end out of Ainsworth, Nebraska. And we've been told that like there's some days where it feels like it's trending in a great direction. There's other days where it just feels like it's going to stay at Nebraska, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think at this point, I would say it's more likely he stays with Nebraska than flips to Notre Dame, but Notre Dame's still trying and he's still talking to them. So things are possible, but I think that I wouldn't bet on him ending with Notre Dame as of today, in my opinion. And Sean, Sexy Man's second question is actually something that we've been asked a ton on this channel and on the message board. I actually was talking about this today in a mailbag. Sexy Man says, with Notre Dame being 1 or 2 seasons away from being defensive back how in the world can't we get any interest from Caleb Beasley or the top-ranked defensive backs? I want to start this conversation with the first half of that, Sean. If Notre Dame trends in the same direction that they have been over the last 2 years with the cornerback play and Xavier Watts, can they have a claim for DBU? Or is that too short of a timeline? How long do you need to be good to be DBU, I guess?
No, you need becoming DBU, in my opinion, is more about NFL. In my opinion, you need some vets and some youngsters still coming in that first and second round at that position to be able to be called deep. Like we're called tight end you, not for what's done at Notre Dame. It's because every Sunday you just watch. You got Notre Dame tight ends catching touchdowns all of Tommy Tremble, just all over the league. Even the ones that weren't drafted high are still starting, producing. And that's why Notre Dame is tight end you, because of how the young men matriculate to the next level. So it's going to take a run of Cam Hart, Benjamin Morrison, then Christian Gray, then Jaden Mickey. It might take 3 to 5 years to really establish it. Yeah, that's putting it on the short end, saying 3 to 5 years. So it's the same look. Caleb Beasley, if he chooses to go to Tennessee, then look, he's a home state kid with a program that's back on the rise. I get it. If he sticks with his commitment, I get it. He's pretty upset with the high school administration, sports administration right now. So
a lot of stuff's going down in Lipscomb Academy right now, man.
Maybe he wants to get out of the state based upon what's going on. And maybe that kind of puts Notre Dame back in the conversation. And that's a long shot, but we have to be honest, man, about where Notre Dame is at certain positions. Like we're getting there, but we're not there. Notre Dame might be 5 to 7 years away at the linebacker position. Like you see the talent, you see where it can start happening, but because Notre Dame we'll have Manti, then we'll have Jalen, but it hasn't been like this current flow of just incredible depth where it's just back to back to back to back to back, and that's what needs to be established. When it comes to connection from Notre Dame to the NFL that we've had at the tight end position, offensive line position at a lower level. Notre Dame has there are tons of defensive linemen playing in the league. We talked about with Devin Butler.
Yeah.
Plenty of secondary players, not top notch that would make you a DBU, but Notre Dame is putting Notre Dame puts, I think, they're 6th or 7th as far as number of players in the NFL.
That sounds right.
For a school. Right. So Notre Dame puts players, but when you start calling yourself, they put players in the NFL, but when you want to start calling yourself a position now you're talking about consistently being first round, second round,
right,
with what you produce at that position.
I agree with you because it's like Ohio State when they were DBU a few years ago, right? As far as they're putting out guys like Denzel Ward and Chris Gamble and Malik Hooker and Damon Arnett. Like all these guys are going in the first round, right? Like it's not like they're like 6th round picks, 5th round picks.
And half of them, bro, weren't really that good.
Yeah. Not as good as their draft profile was. Yeah,
the DBs that played behind Bosa and Chase.
Yeah,
they kind of were cheating, but
yeah, you have to have stay power as far as like consistently putting guys out. Miami back in the day, right? It's like Ed Reed, Sean Taylor, Philip Buchanan. Like it was ridiculous string. LSU, obviously, with Pat Pete and Tyrann Mathieu and all those dudes, LaRon Landry. Like you need to consistently put out a lot of great kids, obviously. So I agree. I think that what we're looking at, Sexy Man, in my opinion, is like hopefully it's the beginning of that conversation. It's still far away to go, but like if Cam Hart, let's say, goes in the top 64 picks, he's a 2nd round pick this year, for instance, let's say, and then next year Benjamin Morrison's a 1st round pick, and maybe Xavier Watts goes top 3 rounds, and then Christian Gray after him is a top 50 player, and so you have to really start stringing it along. But it's a lot better as far as top shelf talent right now than it has been over the last few years. I think it's definitely better, and the depth is taking a massive step forward, in my opinion, which is why you lose Cam Martin. It's like, okay, we get to see more Christian Gray and Jane Mickey. Like, sounds good to me. Like, that sounds pretty cool. No disrespect to Cam, because Cam's been fantastic this year, but you have a lot more depth than you once had at Notre Dame at cornerback, especially. I think the other key is great Xavier Watts is doing, right, Sean? But like the safety position also needs to get moving forward here as well, matching that cornerback room. Like you need to be able to start doing that. As for Caleb Beasley, we put in an intel piece like 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, whatever it was. Guys, just stop talking about Justin Scott and Caleb Beasley. Like it's not going to happen, unfortunately. Like I love Caleb Beasley. He's a great player. Notre Dame wanted him in the class desperately, but it's just not going to happen. So yeah, it's just not going to happen as of today, unless something drastically changes. But where we are. All right, we had a bunch of questions. Sexy Man just said, how are we feeling about Christopher Burgess? I'm feeling good about Christopher Burgess. So as far as Notre Dame's in a good spot, you're going to have to withstand a lot of great programs, obviously. But Mom came with him on the visit to USC a few weeks ago, and he loved it. He came for Ohio State. Came to Ohio State, and he loved it. And his mom's input into that recruitment is going to matter very much. Notre Dame's in a good spot. It's just going to be about outlasting the Alabamas of the world, the Ohio States of the world, some of the more premium programs. But I think Notre Dame has a chance. I think they have a very good chance. All right. All right. Let me see. We're going to move to this one. All right, so we had a question just overall linebacker recruiting from Brandon Plesner. He says, Ryan, what's the latest in 2025 recruiting Should we expect Notre Dame to settle on the easier options, or are they going to battle it out for Noah McHale, Anthony Sacca, Christian Jones, Marco Jones, Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng, Brett Clatterbaugh? Brandon, I would expect Notre Dame to, because look, I know there's some prospects on the board that you were going to dub as the easier targets. I will say that there's a couple players that might not be as highly ranked as a couple of these guys that Notre Dame thinks are dudes, right? So I think that there's a couple names that you need to add to that board, but I do anticipate Notre Dame battling for several of these guys until the end. Marco Jones is a guy that Notre Dame loves. Christian Jones is in the top group. Anthony Sacca is in the top group. Noah McHale is in the top group. Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng is in the top group. Brett Clatterbaugh is high on the board as well. I anticipate them battling for each one of those players because right now, linebacker recruiting is very open, right? Like there's a lot of names on the board right now, Sean. I think, though, that you need to add guys like Josiah Kia to that conversation, who we're going to have on the show later. He might only be a 3-star, but he's got a expanding and good offer list, and Notre Dame likes him a lot. So that would be a guy that Notre Dame, I think, pushes for. But no, they're not going to back down on any of these kids. I think that they really, really like where they are with several of these players, but more than anything, they also reciprocate that interest. Like I think Christian Jones likes Notre Dame. I think Anthony Sacca is very high on Notre Dame, along with Penn State and Ohio State. I think Noah McHale likes Notre Dame. I think Marco Jones is very high on Notre Dame. Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng, you got to get him to campus. Brett Clatterbaugh has been to campus twice. Notre Dame's in a good spot with several linebackers. I'm interested to see how the board kind of fills out, though, Sean, in the end.
And I remember one of the conversations we had with Deuce Knight.
Yep.
Was like, yo, it's going to be very important to see Sam Hartman playing in this offense moving forward and how the offense is going to look like with Deuce Knight coming to practice. Then, as his father, I want to see, okay, let's watch how this develops during the game, how Jared Parker develops. And obviously they saw what they wanted to see, along with his mom loving the school and Deuce loving the school and the staff. And we felt like that was okay. CJ Carr and his family, with Tommy leaving, they're still looking and seeing how things played out, even though CJ from the jump said, man, I'm locked in. And I feel like this is a transitional year, a pivotal year for the linebacker position. Going from the seniors that have been here to the youngsters finally getting on the field. And linebackers are going to be able to watch these young linebackers in 24, in my opinion, put on a show. Because I think they're that talented. I think you're going to have 2 or 3 of these guys step up and really put on a show at the linebacker position. And that can also be just as impactful for these group of young men that Notre Dame is going to be fighting for in the 25 class.
Agree. Great question, Brandon. As always, got a few more from you, but we're going to spread the wealth around a little bit. Let's go to... We had this one from Anthony Solomon, said the Clemson podcast guy said they will not have either starter on the left side of their offensive line. Does this move your score prediction from yesterday? Sean, me and Brian did score predictions yesterday. What have you kind of settled on for this week? Did you have a prediction?
I think Notre Dame, you know what? I'm hoping Notre Dame goes in early and punches them in the mouth. Because I think this Clemson team will would fold at home. I think that crowd will go silent because I think it's going to be an emotional game early. So if Notre Dame weathers the emotions of it and ends up punching them in the mouth, I think Clemson is, man, we can see a blowout. They might get taken to the woodshed again. It could be bad. But I seem to think that the game is going to be a game where Notre Dame is going to have to wear Clemson down physically. Because Clemson's problem right now is depth. They'll be without, I think, 6 or 7 starters right now. Yeah. Will Shipley still not out of protocol. And even if he does play, he still won't be 100%, in my opinion. And, look, and Cade Klubnik is mistakes waiting to happen every week.
Young quarterback,
it is what it is. It actually, in my opinion, if you're a good coach, you use this to kind of galvanize your guys and you kind of say, nobody thinks we have a chance. And let's go out here and play hard and stick together. And, you'll get a good effort, an emotional effort from Clemson, particularly early. But Notre Dame is just right now the better team, the deeper team, and physically, and the matchup is not good for Clemson, right? Because you're going up against it's a big boy game. Like, okay, if you want to come out and play big boy ball and you don't have the depth where you need it, and you're fighting with one hand behind your back. So right now I have Notre Dame winning like 28-17. I have Notre Dame with a double-digit win.
I had 27-17, Sean, so we're pretty similar on our prediction there. Pretty similar there.
Yeah.
It doesn't change much, Anthony, because I wasn't really high on the offensive line in general for Clemson.
Yeah.
Sean, I'm struggling with this game, man, because I agree with you. I think that on paper, Notre Dame is the better team. Like, they just flat out are, in my opinion. But there's something about this game that just says, like, man, I feel like this is gonna be a dog fight. Like,
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Give me your football reasons. Not your emotions and give me your football reasons. I can rock with your football reasons.
Yeah.
Give me your football reasons. Because there are reasons to give pause.
One, I look at Clemson's defense and say Notre Dame has struggled to win outside the numbers at receiver, and they have a dude named Nate Wiggins, who I think is an eliminator of good wide receivers outside the numbers. Two, I think that the best,
but he has been beaten.
He's been, he's a corner. He's been giving up some
He's
stuff.
a gambler. Yeah.
That interior defensive line terrifies me against Notre Dame's interior offensive line. Terrifies me. Tyler Davis, Rukarororo, the freshman that's name I always forget, Peter Woods. I'm just like, dang, man, that interior defense line pretty dang good.
Do they scare you more than the interior Ohio State? I'm talking like think about how you were thinking about that going into that game.
Yeah, I got you.
Because Tyler Davis, he's come on.
Sure.
Lately. Early in the season, people were like, yo.
I think it actually does scare me more now because I think that the thing that Notre Dame had their advantage. Well, actually, no. I take it back. I think it's about the same. I think it's about the same now that I'm thinking about it. I was like mind rattling there for a second. But I think it's really going to hinder on. Is this a good? Yeah, I just think that is this a Pat Coogan, Rocco Spindler, Zeke Corral good game, or is this a Pat Coogan, Rocco Spindler, Zeke Corral bad game? If it's a bad game, I think it's going to be tough to move the ball consistently.
Let me ask you, how do you think they showed up against Ohio State?
How did I think they were going to show up against Ohio State?
No, how do you think they played against Ohio State?
Played pretty well. They played pretty well. They competed.
What was their second toughest? How do you think they played against? I know
Duke?
Louisville. We don't have to talk about Louisville. Okay. Okay.
Well, we talk about Duke. Right? We talk about Duke, right?
How do you think they played against Duke?
I thought they really struggled against Duke, interior offensive line wise. Really struggled. Yeah.
Okay. I think they struggled against Duke for different reasons than they struggled against Louisville.
Wide receiver injuries is your main topic there?
I think there were plays there. I think there were plays there against Louisville and opportunities there. I just think, the game just gets away from you. Sure. The game just gets away from you, and it ends up being one of those games. And
here's a question, though. Here's a question for you.
Hey, we saw Joe Alt get put on his butt against Louisville. So, I mean, it was just one of those Saturday nights, man.
Well, here's the question, though, Sean, because I would love to be more optimistic about this game. And I feel like I'm not, like, super pessimistic because I'm still picking them to win by 10 points. So it's not like, whatever. But Notre Dame on the road this year has left a lot to be
desired,
wanted in those games. Yeah.
I'll say this.
Yes.
Sam Hartman traditionally has struggled against Louisville. He was against Duke. He struggled against North Carolina State in ACC play, right?
Very true.
Very true. So that was the trend. They just got the running game going coming out of the thunderstorm break. I mean, the lightning break against North Carolina State, and that kind of carried the day offensively. Clemson is the team that he's played very well against and has been kind of comfortable against. So if that trend holds up, we're probably getting good Sam Hartman tomorrow.
If Sam Hartman's cooking and this all passing game is cooking, I think it's a blowout. I don't think
you
it's
know what I'm saying. And Chris Tyree is ascending. This is the thing for me.
Yep.
I think special teams is ascending.
I was playing very well the last couple games.
I think look out for a block punt tomorrow.
Ooh, calling it, huh?
Look out for a block punt.
This year,
it might not be the punt return, it might not be the kick return.
Okay.
But special teams is kind of like, okay, they're finding their groove similar to they had last year. It was a block punt that got things going last year at home. Yeah. And if you look, Clemson has all of this talent, but and Malik said this. Malik was like, yo, I watched Clemson and I think about 2016 with us. Like, we knew we were more talented than Virginia Tech, like all the teams we lost to at home that we had no business losing to. But it was like every game, the weirdest things, dude, the dumbest penalties, touchdowns, called back. And that is Clemson this year. Clemson will probably have a big play against Notre Dame that gets called back, or a 30-yard run and they end up fumbling at the end. They lead the nation in fumbles. Like, that's the type of season they've had. 10
lost fumbles, man. 10 lost fumbles.
Yeah, it's hard. You know how it is. It's hard to get that mojo off your back as a team, because as soon as something negative happens, immediately it's like, here we go. Like, here we go. And it only takes one thing for Clemson for that to happen tomorrow. So you're asking Clemson to basically play the perfect game where everything goes their way, and Cade Klubnik is playing like the best he's played, and their receivers can't get off press coverage either. Okay. The freshman's injured, so he's not playing tomorrow. So it's a lot.
Tyler Brown? Is it Tyler Brown's not playing?
Tyler Brown, he's injured. He's not playing tomorrow. So
he's been pretty good too for them.
So now it's like Spector and Bo.
Yeah.
Really? And Notre Dame's going to key on the tight end and take him away and force Klubnik to go somewhere else. So
I like that kid too. I like that kid.
That's why I asked you for the football reasons, because I agree with you. And I would be more worried about the game if it was at night.
Oh, well, yes, I agree with that 100%.
If it was at night,
I
would be, oh, man. But would it be in an early kickoff? I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, man. You know why else too, Sean? This is my last one, and then we'll move on to another question. I think because Notre Dame, what has Notre Dame been really good at and Clemson very bad at? Clemson's been very bad at turning the football over. 15 total turnovers, 10 lost fumbles. Notre Dame, the last two games, have forced turnovers at an alarming rate. 5 against USC, 4 this past game. So you've had 9 against Pitt. You've had 9 turnovers forced in the last 2 games, and Clemson has just given the football away constantly. But my one hesitation, me being a defensive guy, is that forcing turnovers, though, it can be a skill, but it's also random sometimes, right? As far as like a weird bounce here or there, a strange pressure, a tipped ball. There's a randomness to forcing turnovers at times. So when I'm looking at a team and saying, the best thing they do right now is probably forcing the turnovers and putting their offense in good positions to be successful. What if it's a game where you don't force a ton of turnovers? You know what I mean? Like, what if it's one where you only have 1 or you have none? And that's my concern, I think, is that I'm not sure everything that Notre Dame does and that they're good at right now is incredibly sustainable for success. I'm not sure if it is. I'm not, because then you'll have a game where, and you were a Bears fan. You're a Bears fan, right? So do you remember that really good defense you guys had with Charles Tillman and Mike Brown and all those dudes, right? And that one year, you guys forced so many turnovers. I think it was the year you went to the Super Bowl against the Colts with Kyle Orton as the team. And I remember that Bears team was salty and a great defense because they were so good at forcing turnovers. But the occasional game where you're not nearly as good, right? Because it's like that's what you build off of, and it's just not incredibly translatable all the time. That's my hesitation. That's my only.
And they that Super Bowl against the Colts. They got 2 early turnovers. They just couldn't capitalize and put points on the board. And eventually it came back to bite them, And I understand your point. That's my only question to people has been outside of the Jekyll and Hyde that is our squad on the road. What other football reasons, looking at Clemson, give you pause? And when you look at it strictly from a football standpoint, you probably look, like people are worried about Notre Dame dominates Pitt, Clemson loses to North Carolina State. And people are like, why is Notre Dame only a point favorite? Because there was nothing attractive to bettors about Clemson.
Right.
At about 5 o'clock Eastern time last Saturday. Nothing. That was nothing attractive. So Vegas makes it attractive. Now it's up to like 3.5, 4 points. Why? Because a bunch of money came in on Clemson. Vegas knows what they're doing. They know what they're doing.
There's no doubt about that.
So,
no doubt about that.
It's a lot of things that Notre Dame fans are like, oh, this makes me fearful about this game. That makes me fearful about this game. Man, look, the whole year has been about, is Notre Dame going to play their game? That's it.
Yeah.
Are they going to play their game?
If Notre Dame plays their game, I think they win this one convincingly. I think I'm just a little hesitant on whether they will play their game because we've seen it very inconsistently throughout the week. So I hope I'm wrong. I hope they dominate. But it doesn't change my score prediction necessarily, Anthony, because I thought Notre Dame had an advantage defensive line versus the Clemson's offensive line before any more reshuffling happens. Like, they're going to have an advantage there. There's no doubt about that.
It's safe to say we were more nervous about the Clemson matchup last year than we are this year. I can tell you that.
That's very true.
Last year,
they were undefeated coming into the game last year,
with a little bit more depth. And
Notre Dame was 5-3 last year as well when it came to the football game.
I will say this. There is one thing that worries me. Not because we don't have the players.
Yep.
Mitchell Evans is going to be missed. He's going to be missed, man. I mean, the way he was playing, the level he was playing at, he's going to be missed, right? And now you just don't know. I'm confident in Holden stays. And I'm confident. All the tight ends I know can block. Heck, they've been rotating in, blocking. Cooper Flanagan's been rotating in, blocking. So blocking is the last thing I'm worried about.
I'm still waiting because Cooper's been so good at a blocker. I'm still waiting for the first person that's like, hey, can you pack 40 pounds on him and play left tackle after Joel? So I'm just waiting for it, man. It's going to happen at some point. It's going to happen. There's no doubt about it.
That's the last thing I worry about. Mitchell Evans being missed as a blocker, but just like, the tight end room and this is what, man, I'm fired up. I'm like, okay, this is where that running back room, that O-line and the tight ends, this is where you line up and say, okay, we're going to come in and show you once again. We're going to push you around. We're going to bully you again. This is, hey, we're going to do it in your house this time. And dare Clemson to have answers. Dare them to have answers, right? Because they didn't. I'm very interested in the run game. Oh, man, you know what? Let's go. Because we can talk about this matchup for hours. Because I know you guys have broken it down all week. Because last year it was pretty much ISO, straight ahead, downhill. Now I'm interested, especially with a new offensive line coach. Because Clemson is watching the film from last year saying, okay. Their linebackers are saying, okay. Dude, Barrett Carter this week said, man, we just got to be more physical. I'm like, okay, that's your focus? Being more physical? Because we can finesse this thing in the run game too now. Our guys pull and get outside and you're soft on the edge because of injury. Like, I'm interested in seeing how Notre Dame attacks them in the run game.
Yeah, I'm interested too. I mean, because last year it was no contest, right? Like it was no contest. You were able to bully guys like
Mm-hmm.
Miles Murphy and Brian Brissy and
Mm-hmm.
guys like Barrett Carter. I mean, they had to play a unique game to what they were playing the rest of the season. They were, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like Barrett Carter is much more playing pursuits, uses speed, and then as soon as you're
Yeah.
getting downhill, it's like that's a different game than what
Like
you see that kid play.
explain that when you
Yeah.
get bullied with pretty much ISO duo
Yeah.
for an entire game, and
Yeah.
now it's like
you always have to do things that are uncomfortable for players, right? I mean, that's the
Mhm.
change up against a good defense. If I'm a will linebacker stylistically of Barrett Carter, I want to work sideline to sideline and
Exactly.
string everything out to the perimeter.
Exactly.
The minute that you run at me, you kind of did a little bit of a change up where it's like that's a little bit different than what I was anticipating.
Yeah.
It's likewise to Jeremiah Trotter Jr., where Jeremiah Trotter Jr. wants to keep everything downhill. He wants to
Mhm.
explode forward. And if they're able to now show that, hey, I can make Jeremiah Trotter Jr. have to navigate space a little bit more, make him work to the sideline, make him work in pass coverage, that's how you make guys uncomfortable. Like for me, I was more similar to Jeremiah Trotter Jr., I would say, in the fact that like I wanted to play downhill as much as possible. I could run, like I could run. I wasn't a guy that necessarily wanted to play outside the numbers a ton or to the sideline. Like that wasn't really my game. My game was more backfield penetration style.
Bring it on.
Eric Carter's much more space.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. All right. Well, I think we're gonna have another guest here in a minute, Sean.
Okay.
Josiah Kia, star linebacker out of Hawaii. Just making sure he's getting situated behind the scenes here. It's nice enough to take some time off of his school day to join us. So as soon as he's ready to go, we'll pop him in here. I might take one more question before we get the camera rolling here. Sean, a fun one before we get Josiah in here, because I think he's just still making the camera get going there. But we had a question from Irish Gordy and Not. What's up, IGK? Who says, what's the best thing you've ever cooked, grilled or baked?
Well, it's November, so my go-to right now, and I haven't done it yet, but I'll probably do it. My wife always asks for it around her birthday, which is a couple of weeks away. I do a fantastic burnt-in chili.
Okay.
Well, I'll smoke some barbecue,
some brisket, and chop it up.
Brisket, chop it up,
nice.
Throw it in the chili, and you know, with a little turkey meat as well, kind of do the combination. She loves it. You know, I did the white chili beans last time, and she said she liked it, but she wanted me to go back to the red beans. But yeah, that and I love grilling lobsters, bro. Oh,
yeah. It's your thing. It's your jam.
Lobster tails.
Yeah.
That's my thing, man.
I dig it, man. I dig it. We've been I do all the cooking in my household. I do every single part of the cooking in my household.
Okay.
So this is a very like in-depth question, honestly, IGK. Like I think I cook a lot of things very well. I don't know. The most recent thing I made, which I guess you can count as grilled, even though it's not 100%. I made homemade sweet potato gnocchi, homemade from scratch. And then you also do the hot Italian sausage with it, and it's cooked in a brown butter sauce, Sean, which is it's good, man. I like it. I like it a lot. It's very, very tasty. Very tasty.
Now, do you have like options off of that?
As far as you mean the different sauces or different types of protein? For sweet potato gnocchi, I usually just keep it to brown butter. I do make regular gnocchi sometimes though, where it'll be like, I'll make a traditional like gravy type of thing instead of like a red sauce type of deal. So
all right, man, I love risotto, but I'm scared to try it.
Oh, I've made risotto before. We used to do it was like a steak. I forget what type of beef it was, but we used to do like a steak risotto. Yeah. It's actually not that bad, man. You just have to be attentive to it because it's
that's what I've heard.
I forget what the rice is called that use. It's like a something rice. I forget what it's called, but you just have to like cook it in the butter and the stock, and you just have to keep constantly stirring so it doesn't burn on the bottom, and just keep it rocking like that. So
okay,
it's good, man.
Great question.
All right, second interview of the day. Josiah Kia, star linebacker, 2025 recruiting class, one of the top linebackers on the board for Notre Dame. Sean, you ready to get him in? He's coming to us live out of the state of Hawaii. We've never had somebody on from Hawaii before.
How's Josiah,
it going? How are you, man? Good, man. How's everything going?
Everything's going good.
Nice, man. Well, we appreciate you for taking some time out of the school day, man. It's
Oh, of
very much
course, of
appreciated.
course.
How's the weather out there right now, man? I'm sitting here in Jersey and it's like 40 degrees outside right now. How's it out in
It's
Hawaii?
nice right now. We're at about 80 degrees right now.
Nice. Sean, what's
No
it like for
clouds
you
in the
right now,
sky.
man?
Hey,
Yeah,
look, up here in Chicago, it was 80 degrees last week this time, and now I'm looking at snow. So that just shows you, hey, welcome to, what it might be like, you know,
Yes, sir.
you know, here in the Midwest. But I just want to know, you know, just your position and everything you're going through in the recruiting process. How involved is your family in this process? Is it a collective for you? And do you lean on them heavily when it comes to you making your decision? Or is this something that you just feel like, your family is letting you go through and just leaving it up to you to kind of, say, this is where I want to go?
I'll always go to my parents for guidance, but this is definitely a decision that they leave up to me. They trust me to make my own decision because, yeah, I mean, they helped me get to where I am, but ultimately, I'm the one that put in the work, and it's gonna be my life that I'm deciding on. But
And what are you
definitely,
looking
definitely
for?
always going with them.
What are the top things you're looking for when it comes to you ultimately making a decision?
One big thing is definitely the institution that I'll be attending, making sure that I get a high level of education. The second thing is I want to make sure get developed as a football player as well, because everyone wants to get to the next level, and it's no different for me. And then I would say the last thing is I think just the atmosphere and the environment that I'll be in. And that's something that my brother has told me a lot about Notre Dame and how he loves it up there. He said everything's about football, and that's something that's awesome to me.
Well, I think Josiah, I think people would love to hear about that, and obviously Irish breakdown and Notre Dame fans here. Like your older brother Kanu, who is obviously on his mission right now. How's he doing, man? Just kind of updating as far as how's he liking the mission? How's he staying healthy, doing all that type of stuff?
He's doing great. He loves his mission. He's just helping people right now, and then he'll be back. He'll be back in South Bend in January, and I can
Nice.
tell he's excited to get back out on the field.
That's
So
awesome,
yeah.
man. Well, I want to ask about your season a little bit because I know you guys just had a massive victory over St. Louis this past weekend that we were chopping up about a little bit, man. How has this season been living up to your expectations so far?
It's been a fun season, and we have the state tournament upcoming, so we got to finish the deal. But we started off. We had big games right off the bat, and then we went to the mainland, or we went to California to play against Corona Centennial, and we lost a close one then, but we came back, and now we're just ramping up to try and win the state championship.
Love it, man. Well, how are you balancing everything as far as because I know it can be a lot, right? I mean, you're playing football, you're trying to fight for that championship and everything. You're also a student doing everything, Bible study. You got your religious aspects
hmm
of everything, and also balancing the recruiting process. How are you doing just balancing everything on a day-to-day basis?
Um, it is a lot, as you just said, but
Yeah,
to me, the biggest thing, like when I always put God first, everything else seems to just fall into place, and it all works out. So that's the biggest thing for me that helps me is just always putting Him first, making sure I'm praying, I'm studying my scriptures, I'm going to church, and having Him first, and just letting Him take care of the rest.
It's, man, when you say that, man, I just want to share it with you, Josiah, man. My prayer time is 4:30 a.m. every morning. And sometimes, you get busy. I'm up working, doing things with Ryan and just trying to cover recruiting. And I go to sleep late. Oh man,
hmm
it's 6 o'clock. I missed my prayer time. And I just feel like my entire day is thrown off. Just talk about, just setting it up. You started out with class this morning. Just talk about having that in your day at the beginning, what it means to you. Because of course, physically as an athlete, you can go do what you do. But having that spiritual connection and having that consistently, talk about how it impacts you as a young man, as a player as well.
I think it helps me, and it kind of it keeps me centered. I don't stray too far in any direction. And so me, I have a seminary that I go to in the morning. It's at 6 o'clock, so I go to that. Um, and it's hard to make it all the time, but I try to get there most times. And when I do, it's just such a blessing to start my day with that, because it just it's kind of like it's like a peace that helps you, like you feel a lot better about everything else you're doing. Everything is going smooth. And I notice when things are not going smooth and I'm having a bad day, I'm having a bad practice, things are going wrong at school, I look and I say, well, did I give time to God today? And usually on those days I did. So that's what I gotta say about that.
I love it, man. Well, let me just I actually found an old YouTube video of Kahanu when he made his commitment to Notre Dame. It was like the signing day thing, and he was playing basketball against a younger brother. Was that you in that video?
That was me. Yes, sir. That was me.
I'm curious, man, just as far as your relationship with your brother and how much, because I know Sean already asked about, just family in general being like such a support system for you, but how much is being able to see your brother go through this process and being able to just sort through everything? How much of a help has that been for you?
It's been such a help and such a blessing. Me and my brother, like I always want to be competitive. I'm always trying to beat him at everything. But at the end of the day, he's probably my biggest role model, and he's done a lot of things that I'm doing. So I kind of like I get to see how he does things. I can talk to him about things, and it just I don't know. It's very helpful, like in terms of just the habits that he helps me to create. Like he makes sure, like when I ask him for help, he'll tell me to make sure I put God first, to just put your head down and work. And I've seen him do it, so I know it works.
Yeah.
And it's definitely helpful to have somebody that's done it before in front of you, that you
With
can
the
follow.
with the recent local events that have taken place, have you had an opportunity to give back to the community? And if so, what has that been like for you and your family?
So luckily our island was not impacted by the fires. Um, but we have a lot of events at school and with church, just like fundraising, donating, and just praying for these people on the island of Maui that are affected by the wildfires. So yeah.
Love it, man. Oh, well, let me ask you now more on like the recruiting side of things. Obviously, I know you know a lot about the Notre Dame program, being your relationship with your brother and everything. But what has it been like to be able to get to know them authentically as recruits to recruiters, and how has that relationship just with the Irish been developing?
It's been amazing. I think I told you, yeah, we talked about it when Coach Biaggi came down to Hawaii. I think a couple weeks ago. That was awesome to see him there. I've got to talk to Coach Freeman quite a few times, and like I was so just in shock about how real that guy is. Like he was a real. I was able to have a great conversation with him. He's a real dude. He's not selling anything that's not real. Like, and they're all. I just enjoyed talking to all of their staff and recruiters.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and let me ask, because the staff that of Notre Dame, I want to hear how if this is appealing to you, Josiah. Like I haven't asked this about you before, but you have Marcus Freeman, who played linebacker at Ohio State, played in the NFL briefly before an injury. You have Al Golden, who coached the Cincinnati Bengals linebackers in the Super Bowl a couple years ago and is now one of the best defensive coordinators of college football. And you have Max Bulla, who was also a great linebacker at Michigan State. How appealing is it, I guess, to be able to learn under so many coaches on the staff that know the position that you're potentially playing at such a high level?
It's very appealing. That's like just having a defensive mind all the way to the top, and especially when they're all linebackers who have coached or played at the highest level, that is definitely something that's very appealing because I know I'm gonna get the best instruction and the best development over there.
Well, and let me ask, because obviously, we're Notre Dame centric, but we love to cover the entirety of a recruiting process. Who are some other schools right now to you that are also high on your list and are selling a great pitch to you as far as what they can provide and then how you potentially fit with their program?
Some other schools. I picked up an offer from Michigan State yesterday. I've enjoyed talking to them. They've been great. I really like Texas as well. I've been talking with Coach Colt, and then definitely the University of Utah as well.
Nice.
I talked with Coach Colton Swan, and I like what they have going over there as well.
Awesome, man. Well, let me ask you, because of the Utah conversation, are you planning on also taking a mission like your brother, or is that something that you're not really thinking about right now?
To be completely honest, it's in my mind, but I'm not 100% sure either
Okay.
way yet. It's a decision I still need to pray about and talk over.
Gotcha. Well, and as we get you out of here, Josiah, in a couple minutes, I just am curious as far as, because Sean had already asked, like, what's important to you in this process and trying to figure out visits that you might be taking after the season. I know you talked to me a little bit about, potentially trying to get up to Notre Dame, maybe in January sometime.
Mm-hmm.
How important is just kind of getting to those schools and being able to really talk to these recruiters and these staff members in person for you?
I think that's really important to me because it's easy to sell something over the phone. You know what I mean? But I want to be there. I want to experience it. I want to see what it's all about. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
So how are you looking at the playoffs right now? You excited? You going into it? Team feeling good? And
Oh,
how good of a chance do you
yes,
guys
sir.
have of coming away with the trophy?
I think we have a good chance. We're peaking at the right time. We started strong in the season, and then we took that loss in California, came back, lost to another local team. But since then, I've seen our team come together. Our defensive and offensive really started to come together, and that's something that I think is important for our team because defense, we were always together, offense was together. We didn't really come together as a team fully, but this past week, we really started to come together, and everything's clicking. We're not all the little things we were messing up on are starting to go away. Everyone's playing with each other. Communication is way better during the games, and we're all just doing our jobs. No selfish play anymore. So I think we have a good chance. There's a couple good teams we got to play, but I think we definitely can. We can definitely come away with the victory.
Absolutely. We
I'm
support you
curious on.
guys, man.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, as you work through here, we'll definitely be supporting you from the outside. There's no question. I'm curious because I asked this one about to you, Josiah, as far as for an interview, and because I watch your film, and I'm a linebacker nerd. I played linebacker. I played different spots, so like I love talking about this type of stuff. But so you are a player that I look at, and I'm like, he could play out in space if you need him to. He could play Mike eventually as his body continues to develop. He could definitely play Will with the sideline to sideline speed you have. Ideally, and I know we talked about this before, but ideally, just for the conversation, how has your game been developing this season? And how many different spots at linebacker do you feel like you could play?
I honestly think I could play outside, inside, or kind of like a jack on the edge. So last year I played a true off-ball linebacker. I was off ball. I was covering. I was filling. And this year I'm still playing that off ball, but we run a 3-4, but we can shift to a 4-man front. And so I'm the adjuster to the 4-man front. Where this year I've learned a lot of pass rush this year, and I've gotten even more comfortable dealing with linemen on the line of scrimmage as opposed to from distance. But I know that I can play either position. And I think next year I might move inside just based on how our team is and because we lose a lot of guys. So I'm just trying to stay versatile, develop in as many ways that I can so that when I get up to college, I can get on the field as quick as possible.
And my last question for you, and I really appreciate all the time you've given us. Outside of your brother, who obviously is another Hawaii guy, Notre Dame has had a nice little pipeline here of Maris Loival and Jordan Botelho and some, I mean, even working back to Manti Te'o, obviously, who was a Heisman Trophy finalist. How appealing and how important would that potentially be for you to maybe help continue that Hawaii pipeline to Notre Dame?
That's very appealing to me. Just, Hawaii, we have a lot of pride in Hawaii, in our state. And to see guys go out, it's good to root for them, and we wanna continue things like that pipeline, and even especially from the school that I go to, Puno School, we've had, I think there's 4 guys at least. It was like you said, Manti Te'o, Robbie Toma,
Yep,
who's coaching on my team right now, and then Maris Liufau, my brother, and it's just I think it's great. It's definitely appealing to not be the only guy over there. You know what I mean?
right. Yep. Absolutely. I didn't know Robbie Toma was coaching out there, man. That's
Yeah.
awesome. What's it like with Coach Toma? Does he give you any Notre Dame stories?
I'm not I talked to him a little bit, but he's coaching the receivers and he's getting them right though.
I love it, man.
They're doing big things right now.
I love it, brother. I love it. Well, again, Josiah Kia, star linebacker, 2025 class out of the state of Hawaii. Notre Dame fans, make sure that you pay attention to him because he is one of the top linebacker recruits in the 2025 class and on the Notre Dame board right now, a guy that Notre Dame is making a priority. I really appreciate you again, man. For people that don't know, there's a 6-hour time difference between us right now. So it is, 9:24 in the morning. You have
It's
carved out some time
9:24
for
right
us,
now.
brother. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining the show, and we'll talk to you again very soon, okay?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. All right, well, Sean, there's our second interview. Mr. Josiah Kia, again, star linebacker 2025 class out of the state of Hawaii. Really appreciate. I was actually trying, so I told Sean this before the show, everyone, just for some context. I was trying to record with him earlier today, and I was like, can we maybe carve out some time before you go to school or something like that? And he's like, I have Bible study at 6:00 before school, so I don't really have any time. I'm like, dang, man, you are a busy dude. I think I'm busy, and that I'm seeing what these kids are doing nowadays, man. But
when you hit me with that Bible study comment, I was like, oh, word? I'm like, oh,
6 a.m. too, man. I was like, so you got to be, what's he up at like 5 a.m., 5:30 at least, right? To get ready for that type of guy. So yeah, man.
You see, he told you sometimes it's hard. It's hard. And I can, that 4:30 for me is hard sometimes. But like he said, it has so many benefits. So many benefits. And he's an impressive young man.
Isn't he? He's a junior in high school, Sean. Junior in high school, man. Yeah.
He's an impressive young man. I would love to see him in the gold helmet.
He really is, man. I feel like every time I have one of these kids on, or we have one of these kids on, I continue to be shocked by just how mature they are. I'm just like, that kid's a junior in high school.
Oh, why are you shocked? You have a 3-year-old that's darn near a genius right now, Ryan.
Yeah, don't give Juliet too much credit, but because I'm thinking back to when I was 16 or 17 years old, Sean, I'm like, I would be able to do an interview like that. Like, no
shot.
And like, I was a decently smart kid. Like, I mean, I wasn't Notre Dame caliber like this young man is, but like, I would never have been able to handle myself the way that he just handled himself in that interview. I mean, just shout out to him, man.
I would have been so. If my 16-year-old self would probably have had my friends right in the background, like, yo, what's up? Exactly. Like, man, I'm just super excited to be on. Like, man, they want me to come on Irish Breakdown. Like, man, like, yeah. If Brian was back then, Brian would probably have to call me. Like, can you get your friends out the background, please? Like, Like, pause the interview. I need you to take your friends out the background.
So well spoken, man. And again, I guess I shouldn't be shocked at this point, but again, I'm trying to remember when I was his age, and I'm just like, dude, I would not have been able to do that, man. Yeah, really, really impressive athlete. 6'3", 205 pounds. He's played out in space. He's played inside linebacker. He's played on the edge. Really interesting football player. For all the people out there that are stargazers, 3-star, it's like Texas wants him. Some Big Ten schools want him. Like,
Hey,
schools want him, man.
Utah wants him. That's good enough for me.
Yeah. As soon as I heard
Utah
Texas,
wants
I'm
him.
like,
yeah. I love the fact that it seems like he's fallen in love with rushing the passer.
Yeah, interesting, man. It's very interesting because I mean we've seen Marist, right, be used on the edge a little bit, like that. That could work. That could work. Yeah, really impressive athlete. It's so funny because he is completely different than his brother, though. His brother was like very downhill inside linebacker type. This is more of like a rangy movement type guy. You know what I mean, as far as his style. So very different. 2 super chats I want to hit on real quick, Sean, before we get out of here. Ronnie with a nice super chat here. Thank you so much, Ronnie. I told Sean wants you to know, Ryan, I moved from Indianapolis to Gainesville. I'm 5 football fields away from the hospital at University of Florida, kind of why I chose the complex. I am ready to check out whoever you want. Ronnie, email me at riseanddraft@gmail.com and we'll have a conversation, man. I would love to get some insight. I would love to get, and I hope you're enjoying the move down there, man. I know moves can be Sean, I've moved now like 5 times in my life, and I'm like, I'm good. I don't need to move anymore. You know, like, I do not need to move anymore.
I'm interested in Ronnie. I'm interested in knowing how you told me, because I'm trying to remember the interaction.
You're getting a little old, Sean. You're missing.
No, it might have been.
Just,
it might have been. It might have been during the time when I really wasn't responding.
Yep.
So so if I missed it, I want to respond.
Yes. Yep. Ronnie, make sure to hit us up, man, at Rise and Drift on Twitter. And our SD2 mics is yours, right, on Twitter? Okay, I just want to make sure I remember that correctly. Yep. So hit us up, man. Hit us up. And the last one, Raymond Harton said, it's all about how our offensive line plays tomorrow. They will have the most impact on the game. I actually don't disagree with that at all, Raymond. I think that the Notre Dame offensive line will set the tone for whether they blow this team out, whether it's a close win or whether they lose the game. I think the offensive line will have a big fit in there. So,
dude, they set the tone. You know me. I do not, dude. I don't like how much pressure in big games or perceived big games everyone puts on the offensive line. Notre Dame has to be perfect every big game at the offensive line to win. And that's just not realistic. You have to be able to win games multiple ways. Special teams, the O-line is not always going to be perfect. So it's just like, the O-line doesn't play well. And no. You have a top 10 defense that's been taking the ball away. Heck, Sam Hartman, give us one of those. This is why you brought me to Notre Dame games against top competition. Can I get one of those tomorrow? Wide receivers. Hey, Tobias, no one can stick you. I've yet to see a defensive back from any team that you have not run past. Not like the best of the best, you've run past all of them. Devin Jr., throw him on the list. You ran by him. Make a big play. Chris Tyree, keep doing what you're doing.
Yep.
Like, dude, this is a team. This is going to be a team win tomorrow, in my opinion. Like I said, I expect special teams to come through. The defense to do what they do. Sam Hartman continue that trend against Clemson. And O-line just compete. You know what your tackles are going to do.
Yeah. Yeah, Sean, I agree, man. I think there's a world where it happens. I'm just, again, gotta see it, man. Gotta see it. But that's going to do it for today's show, folks. It's going to do it for today's show. We had Devin Butler on, former Notre Dame cornerback, on first section of the podcast. You missed that, go back and listen. Second set of the podcast, we had the mailbag, so make sure to go listen to all the mailbag questions we hit on in there. And then the third section, we just interviewed Josiah Kia, linebacker 2025 out of the state of Hawaii, who's on the course for a hopeful state championship here very soon. Make sure before you leave, if you can hit that like button for us, subscribe to the podcast, notification bell, because we will be back tomorrow for the post-game show after Notre Dame takes on Clemson, 12 o'clock Eastern time. So make sure you hit that notification bell to know when we're going live. Make sure you also go to boards.irishbreakdown.com. We will continue to have recruiting intel, team intel as we move into the last section of the Notre Dame season. Thank you all so much, and we'll catch you all very soon again on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.